Good morning. We're going to get started this morning with our invocation and pledge of allegiance. Our invocation will be led by Jeff Hands, pastor of Oak Cliff Church of the Nazarene, and that will be followed by the pledge of allegiance led by Lily Vicia, representing Girl Scouts Troop 177. Please stand as you are able.
Would you bow your hearts with me this morning? Father, we come before you, and we just want to lift up your name. You've created this time for us, and so, Lord, we ask that you would redeem it. Lord, I pray that you would be with each of these members of the council. Holy Spirit, that you would weigh upon their hearts the awesome responsibility that you have given them, appointed for this time in this position. Lord, I pray for everybody in this room, in the business that will be discussed. May it bring honor and glory to you. May there be peace and civility in our hearts, Lord Jesus. Holy Spirit, we just thank you for the city that we live in. I pray for each of us that we would be excellent citizens as we follow you and we follow your will. May your kingdom be done, your will be done, right here in this very room. Lord, I pray that you would just raise up your church, that we would be powerful advocates for these leaders, that we would be in prayer constantly for them. Lord, I pray that you would just be glorified, honored, and praised in the city of Oklahoma City. And we ask this in the powerful name of Jesus. Amen.
Please join me in the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you, Pastor Hands, and thank you, Lily. Great job. All right, I call this meeting of the City Council to order. We are at item 3. Today is mostly a budget hearing. There are no votes today, but 3 is labeled items requiring separate vote, but there's not actually a vote. It is a public hearing on the proposal to raise the Oklahoma City hotel tax, and we do have some people who have signed up to speak today. So we will start there, and I will call their names. If you wouldn't mind stating your name, address, and keep your remarks to 3 minutes or less. Jason Clark. Morning.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Jason Clark. I'm at 2612 West Eubanks Street in Oklahoma City. I'm here this morning to speak on the hotel occupancy tax. In favor of it, I have a few notes from my life that I'd like to share about the city. I'm currently the general manager of the Ambassador Hotel in Midtown, Oklahoma City. Midtown is a great place to be coming up. The Ambassador Hotel is not a convention hotel. It's not a large hotel. But we do all rise on the same wave of tourism with our other brothers and sisters in hospitality. I think we have a chance to be better at promoting our city, promoting the strengths that we have to offer to large conventions and events that will in turn create jobs and bring taxes to our city for the good of us all. I've been at the Ambassador for about 8 years now. I started as a front office manager and worked my way up to my current position. Our parent company is Corey Hospitality. We've really invested in the city in a large way. Our employee staff has doubled in the past 5 years, and we're on track to keep adding to that number in the following 5 years. I think the big question that we all ask ourselves is how are we going to continue to fill our hotel rooms that we have now, in addition to filling the hundreds of rooms that are coming down the pipeline in the coming years. I admit I haven't always been loyal to Oklahoma City. I moved here when I was about 10 in the 90s with my parents. We bought a house in Mesta Park. It wasn't uncommon to see boarded up houses, and there was a lot more broken glass and trash at the actual park itself than there was playground equipment and kids playing on it. I think as a teenager, I felt the same lack of connection with the city. I left quickly as soon as I could to take university studies in Texas, and I kept coming back every summer to stay connected with Oklahoma City, to see what was happening here, looking for something exciting. After graduation, I bought a one-way ticket to the Pacific Northwest. I lived in Seattle for a year and really ramped up my hospitality career on board a yacht in Alaska for another year. I kept coming back semi-annually. Still wanted to keep my finger on the pulse of Oklahoma City because I did love it. In the next chapter of my life, I got married, moved to Chicago, opened 2 hotels in downtown. I welcomed my 3 kids into the world, and it was about this time that my perception of Oklahoma City started changing. We'd still come back and visit family several times a year, and it was at this time that all of a sudden art, coffee, restaurants, retail were popping up in districts that hadn't existed in my lifetime. I became very, very surprised by that. I started to hold these things up to what I was visiting in Chicago, and all of a sudden they were competing.
30 seconds remaining.
30 seconds.
So thank you very much. I want to say that in my surprise that I experience guests at my hotel who are constantly surprised. Do they have to be surprised by Oklahoma City being a great place? When they come, can they know that it's a great destination? Can we do a better job of marketing them? I think that this occupancy tax can help that. Can we have them coming as a destination for what we are? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Jeff Penner?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. Jeff Penner, 1496 East Interstate Drive. It's not often that an industry appears before you to ask to be taxed, but here we are. The CVE funding mix established in 1972 was 2%, and today in 2024, it's still 2%. Oklahoma City is simply not the same city. Years ago, as a desk clerk at the then Skirvin Plaza, I had only to look outside at 5 p.m. to witness the race who could get out of downtown the fastest. Aerosmith stayed with us one night after a concert at the Myriad, and they wanted hamburgers. The only place I could send the bellman to was the bus station. Our association will always be thankful to former Mayor Ron Norick and city leadership at that time. Their legacy is that today Oklahoma City is well on its way to being a destination, no longer a drive-through city. The CVB is deserving of additional funding. They have so many new venues to offer and to market. Our association is totally supportive of Fair Park and the Convention Center capital improvements, as it only enhances the visitor experience. The event sponsorship support is a win-win for all. It is the perfect mechanism to bring phenomenal multiplier dollars into the Oklahoma City economy, resulting in general fund dollars to be used in your individual wards. Our association thanks each of you for your service to our great city, and we thank you in advance for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie Watkins?
Good morning, Mayor, City Manager, Council. I'm here on behalf of to support this income, the increase in the tax, just as a point of saying that it has not been raised in 20 years. We're a different city over the last 2 decades, last 3 decades now. And on behalf of the Memorial and Museum, we count on the outside tax dollars coming in to visit the memorial, certainly to run the museum, to run the marathon. We had excess 22,000 runners a couple weeks ago. Half of those are from outside of the city coming in to stay in hotel rooms. And I think it's time we all join together and help lift our city to the next level. And so we support that. And my address is 620 North Arby's. Sorry. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Brittany Hunter?
Good morning, Brittany Hunter, 1 Remington Place, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So as many of you know, I'm the executive director of the Oklahoma City Adventure District, located in Councilwoman Ward Nice's Ward 7. And so we are the district who lives off tourism. We are home to the #1 tourism draw of the state, the Oklahoma City Zoo, along with the Science Museum, the Cowboy Museum, National Cowboy Western Heritage Museum, Devon Park now, and many, many small businesses that help boost our local economy. And so in Ward 7, for every 10 residents, we have 8 visitors coming to the northeast side of Oklahoma City. Between Bricktown, downtown, and the Metro District, we are the two main drivers of out-of-town visitors for Ward 7. We are home to, again, some of the largest attractions in the state. We also host the largest events and drive visitation to our city through the NCAA Women's College World Series at Devon Park. So visitors represent a significant base of business for our attractions, restaurants, and events. Without strong visitation, these large tourism employers in our district cannot sustain. Visit OKC provides marketing and promotional support and amplifies the marketing efforts we do at the district and the attraction level. And also, I will say they're being a strong helping hand and as we aggressively search for a hotel for our district. The Venture District is heavily featured in the Visit OKC's regional advertising campaigns and destination signature at the airport and in their travel brochures. Oklahoma City Zoo is currently the cover for the summer and fall pocket guide. The Visit OKC PR team also pitches our attractions and exhibits to national media, frequently bringing national travel writers to cover what's going on in our area. So please, please, please pass this hotel tax. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes those who have signed up to speak under item 3, the public hearing. So we'll move on into the meat of our meeting today, which is our latest budget briefings. Item 4, presentations and discussion of the FY25 proposed budget. And from here, it's pretty much your show, Mr. City Manager. So
Thank you,
I'll turn
Mayor.
it over to you.
Yes. So we're going to start off with the public transportation and parking budget. We've got 3 budgets on today: public transportation and parking, parks and recreation, and development services. So we'll start with Jason Fairbrush, Assistant City Manager and Embark Director, and let him present the public transportation and parking budget.
All right, well, good morning, Mayor and Council. Again, Jason Fairbrush, Assistant City Manager, Director of the Public Transportation and Parking Department, Embark. And it's truly a pleasure to be here this morning to be able to present our FY25 proposed budget to Council. Wanted to take a minute to thank the staff. A lot of effort went into preparing the proposed budget. And specifically wanted to recognize Ty Hawley, who is with us this morning. The work that you see on the presentation, whether it be the graphics or the layout, the design, all of that is her work. She does an exceptional job in contributing to Embark for several years now. And when we give her projects that aren't within the rigid confines of a budget presentation, that's where she really shines. So thanks a lot, Ty, for your creativity and your professionalism. All right, so beginning with the budget presentation this morning, what I thought I would do is basically revisit Embark's vision, remind Council of our 3 strategic initiatives, and then we're going to provide an overview of some of the services and projects that we'll accomplish or have accomplished through the resources that are provided through the budget. We'll then get into an overall budget summary and hit some highlights of a few of the major changes. So with that, our vision, our aspirational goal, a goal that we readily admit we are not there yet, but we continue to work towards, is to be world-class transportation that is accessible to all and that all want to access it. And as far as our strategic initiatives go, these are multi-year initiatives that help us as staff continue to focus on the right things, if you will, allocate resources towards the right purposes. It's all about creating a great place to work, enhancing the status and use of our services, and then preserving the confidence of our policymakers, specifically City Council. So as we begin to look at like our first initiative here, creating a great place to work, we have been focused for many years now, several years recently, on creating a great place to work. We want that environment where people want to come to work, they enjoy what they do, and it's something you have to continually work out. And as you know, anytime you look at addressing culture or improving culture, it is a work in process. That is why we've identified creating a great place to work as one of our initiatives that we will continue to work towards in the coming years. You know, one of the things that I share with staff when you talk about creating a great place to work and having that culture that we strive for is when I have opportunities, I tell them, the best thing we can do for each other is to give peer-to-peer recognition. So if you're working alongside someone and they're doing a great job, just tell them, hey, thanks for that, or good job, or I noticed you really had a good idea here. So we try to foster that through creating a great place to work, but at the same time, we do have some structured recognition programs that I wanted to talk about a little bit. And these are all tied to our roadmap. This is our employee-driven transformation plan, launched back in November 16th, 2020. It was certainly a turning point type of day for our organization and a credit to those within our organization that really have that vision for strategic planning and long-term outlooks. But through those structured programs, we have the Stoke Storyteller program. That builds off of our core values to be safe, be there, be open, and be kind. And the way this program works is, again, it's peer-to-peer recognition. Employees fill out a card, basically nominating another employee, recognizing them for kind of living and embodying a specific core value. Since we launched that program about 3 years ago, we've had 2,000 of those cards turned in where a frontline transit professional has recognized another frontline professional just for doing a good job. The other program that we have in place is our Legends program. And this is a program where really supervisors recognize employees. And then once a quarter, we have a recognition program for the Legends of Embark. And to date, we've recognized 50 legends. So certainly some programs we believe that have a very positive trajectory moving forward. One of the other things that goes to creating a great place to work, of course, is having modern facilities with adequate space. And I think council has heard me share this before, but we are essentially, we have outgrown our headquarter facility at 2000 South May. That facility is about 25,000 square feet. Almost all of the 384 budgeted positions, if you will, report to that facility. So as you can imagine, we are pretty crammed. And so what we're looking for in terms of the future is obviously an increased new modern facility to allow adequate space for our workforce and to allow adequate space for all of our rolling stock, AKA vehicles that we use every day to provide transit service. Optimistically, that could be a potential GO bond program, but as we know, that's a ways out in the future. So we've developed an interim plan to help us be able to accommodate some of those space needs. And within this coming year, we plan to do a remodel of our Embark headquarters, basically opening up some space, modernizing it a bit, giving it a fresh look. And at the same time, we're going to take a portion of our staff, particularly our administrative division, if you will, finance and planning and folks like that, and move those transit professionals to some space we have in the Santa Fe Depot. So unfortunately, we will not be under one roof, probably for the next 4, 5, 6 years, however long it may take to be able to come up with a new facility. But nonetheless, we have an interim plan to address our space needs and a long-term plan that we can talk a little bit more as I advise council of a grant we recently received. All right, so the next initiative we have is enhancing the status, use, and understanding of our services. And what this initiative about is really maintaining our current customer base while at the same time growing transit usage within our community. We do that by engaging and informing individuals, families, letting them know there are choices to move about our great city. Another part of enhancing the status, use, and understanding of our service is really protecting that transit brand or enhancing that transit brand, whether it be through new services such as the Rapid or simply doing what we need to do as a transit agency every day, such as maintaining our transit stops in a state of good repair, well-functioning, clean, and locations that people want to use. So, next slide here is really kind of diving into our OKC Moves plan. You know, in this last year, we talked a lot about the Rapid, OKC's first bus rapid transit. At the same time, however, as we were implementing the rapid and finishing that construction, standing up operations, we were also completing OKC Moves. This is a plan that looks at our fixed route bus system. Through the planning process, we acknowledge that our city has changed since we last did a plan like this back in the 2013 time period. Trip generators have moved. There are new trip generators that exist. We want to make sure that our fixed route bus system, the backbone of our transit system, if you will, still gets people to where they need to go. So we completed the OKC Moves plan last year, or I should say last calendar year. And this plan will set us up, just like the previous plan did before, to incrementally improve our system over the next 5 to 8 years as resources are available. With that said, there were some options that we were able to implement right away that we would consider generally to be no-cost options. And I'll talk about those briefly, but with the implementation of the Rapid BRT, because the BRT serves some areas where we had existing service, we were able to repurpose assets. So we took those fixed route buses where service is now provided by BRT, we repurposed them, we merged routes 3 and 5 to allow a direct connection from northeast Oklahoma City to northwest Oklahoma City without having to come downtown to get to the two sides of the city. We also expanded Route 8. We took Route 8 all the way out to Council Road. There's certainly some trip generators at the end of that line in terms of like grocery stores and other retail. And that was some feedback that we had received through community engagement and surveys, was that customers wanted that route to be extended. We streamlined Route 4 basically by removing some stops on, Route 24, that's our express route from Norman to Oklahoma City. And then, as I mentioned, we implemented BRT. But the whole gist really of OKC Moves is we have a plan in place, again, to allow us to be able to incrementally improve our system in the coming years. The other thing I wanted to share with council, again, thinking about what we do with the resources that are provided through the budget process, is really try to give council an idea of some services that we provide that are not necessarily the first things you think about when it comes to public transit. Public transportation and parking, and talking about transportation, public transit is for sure what we do. We live and breathe it every day. That is where the majority of our trips come from. But we also recognize there's some niche transportation needs. There are some residents in our community that for whatever reason, a standard public transit solution does not work for them for their mobility needs. And so through our mobility management program, we've basically created some individualized type transportation. I won't go through all of the numbers and descriptions on the slide here, but starting from left to right, kind of working from top to bottom, I'll hit a few of the highlights. One of the programs I wanted to mention was the Climb Ride program. I think I've talked about this before, but through this fiscal year, we've provided over 4,600 trips in this program, which is all about reunification of parents and children that are in the foster care system. A lot of times parents will have to get to certain agencies, certain services to be reunified. We provide that transportation through grants and through funding from DHS. Another one that might interest you is the weekly grocery shopping. So we take seniors to grocery stores on a regular basis through weekly routes to allow seniors to be able to shop for groceries without having to have their own transportation. And then finally, maybe I'll finish just by talking a little bit about the Embark Well program. This is a program that was developed that allows us to take seniors to various wellness and fitness centers across the city, specifically YMCAs and the MAPS 3 wellness centers. We provided over 5,400 trips to those wellness centers, and I wanted to mention that the Embark Well program was recognized by the National Aging and Disability Transportation Center as one of its top 14 innovative transportation programs for this last year. So again, trying to fill that niche when standard public transit does not serve all residents. And then finally, we are certainly keenly aware that when you think about enhancing the status and the use of our service, overall ridership is certainly a gauge or an indicator that we look at, that most look at to see how are we doing as a transit agency. So what we have here is just a slide that really summarizes our annual ridership by mode. And again, I won't go through all of the numbers, but essentially if you look at the FY24 ridership compared to FY23 by mode, you'll see increases in every mode that we have. And if you sum the FY24 ridership, you're probably in about the 3.3 million trip range. So annually, FY24, we're on pace for about 3.3 million trips, and we continue to grow our ridership percentage-wise year over year in each one of our service lines. So the next few slides, and I know these slides are familiar to you, but we'll just dive a little bit deeper into bus ridership, and we'll also look at streetcar ridership. So this is our total bus ridership from FY20 to FY24. Again, you can see that we're on pace to finish this year with about 2.8 million trips on our fixed route system. And again, that's 4 consecutive years of increase. And in FY24, we are actually expected to surpass our FY20 amount. And then we'll also look at our night bus ridership. As a reminder to council, we do have 5 routes that we, on our fixed route side, where we provide service until midnight. Our night ridership, as you can see, is about 100,000 for FY24. Again, a very similar picture to our overall ridership, where we've seen 4 consecutive years of increases, and again have surpassed where we were in FY20. And then, let's see, our next slide that we have here is going to be, weekend. I'm sorry, I missed weekend. Our weekend bus ridership is finishing FY24 at 395,000, again, 4 consecutive years of growth. And then streetcar ridership, looking at streetcar, we're going to finish the year at about 227,000 passenger trips, relatively flat since about FY22. And then next we have our ADA and senior transportation. Again, with our paratransit trips, we're expected to finish this year with about 47,000 trips in total. Relatively flat since FY21. We have not, unlike some of our other modes, we have not bounced back, if you would, in terms of ridership on our ADA transportation from where we were in FY20. However, it's not necessarily a bad thing. The ADA transportation that we provide in a lot of cases are for medical appointments, and we know that industry has changed a bit. There's a lot more telemedicine occurring than what was maybe occurring 5 to 6 years ago. And so we're seeing a little bit less demand or trips in that area. Then our final initiative that we'll talk about today is that of preserving the confidence of our policymakers, and again, City Council specifically. One of the things we wanted to mention in the interest of demonstrating our ability or our attempt to preserve that confidence is really having an opportunity to talk this morning a little bit about the 5310 program. And so I know 5310, unless you're closely connected to transit, doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. So I'll explain. 5310 is a grant program where funding from the feds comes into the urbanized area, and that funding is to be used for transportation solutions for seniors and individuals with disabilities. The FTA and ODOT have both recognized, approached, agreed, however you want to describe it, that Embark would probably be the best fit to manage those funds for our urbanized areas. So whereas those funds went somewhere else previously, they were used mainly just to purchase vehicles, that funding will be coming to Embark. We will be managing that program. Agencies can apply for that funding. We can put some of that funding towards our own programs. And the idea here is to really expand those funds so we're not just purchasing vehicles, we are actually providing transportation services. So we can work within our own walls, if you will, of our organization, or we can work with outside agencies to, sure, continue to purchase needed vehicles, but also to fund contracted transit services for, say, non-emergency medical or other trips like that, and in some cases even look at some capital improvements. So just to give you an idea of the significance of that, the first year, or this coming year as we stand that program up, we'll have several apportionments, if you will, to deal with. So we'll have about $3.2 to $3.6 million. And then annually, that'll be another $1.2 million, roughly. It changes from year to year, of funding that we'll be able to really help direct and hopefully get the most bang for our buck, if you will, in serving this urbanized area, specifically Oklahoma City. So that's a new program. We're certainly pleased to report on that. Another thing that we think of in terms of preserving confidence of our policymakers is our ability as a transit agency to secure competitive grants, right? So there's funding out there that's available, but in a lot of cases, outside our normal formula funds, we have to be able to compete for that money. We have to be able to show that we have, worthy projects, that we have a plan in place to spend the money in an efficient way. And so this, almost a year ago, actually, we were notified by the FTA of two significant grants. On June 26th of last year, we were notified that we received $5.8 million in a competitive grant to replace some of our buses, right? So we're in very, very good shape in terms of our rolling stock. The oldest buses that we have in our fleet are 2011s. Those are scheduled to be replaced every 12 years. We have a bus order in place now. Those buses will be replaced, and then this grant funding will help us begin replacing the next group of buses. The other grant that we were notified of, and this was, I believe, just 2 days later on June 28th, so it was a really good week for us. We were notified we received about $4.3 million in RAISE grant funding. And so the significance of this is, I'll take you back to the very early comments of the presentation when I mentioned optimistically we might have opportunities through the next GEO bond program to at least propose a new facility for transit operations, noticing that we've certainly outgrown the one that we're in now. Well, the significance of the RAISE grant is that RAISE grant will allow us to be able to fund some architectural work, some engineering work, to be able to get some concept designs and some really solid cost estimates in place, hopefully before we have an opportunity to kind of revisit what's in the next GEO bond program. So though it's a very significant grant for us. Also wanted to talk just briefly about parking. As council is aware, we as a department manage the on-street parking spaces, but we also have 5 parking facilities that we maintain, over 5,000 off-street parking spaces. And a couple of things we've done in the areas of parking is, one, with our off-street parking operations, we have enhance the security in all of our parking facilities. In some cases, we've done some technology to enhance security. In other cases, specifically the Arts District Garage, Sheridan Walker, some other downtown garages, we've increased our security guard presence, if you will. Again, thinking about being world-class transportation services, we want people to make sure that they feel safe in our garages. The other thing that we talk about a lot within our parking operation is it's our goal as a department to make sure that when people park in a Embark or city garage, that they know they're in an Embark or City Garage without ever having to look at the signage, or because it's clean, it's well-maintained. We want to stand out and have the best garages in the downtown core. And so with that, one of the things that we continue to do is have a capital maintenance program. And so this last year, as we do, I shouldn't say frequently, periodically, we have consultants come in, they assess each of our parking facilities, they make recommendations, and so that sets kind of the tone, if you will, for our capital plan or our capital improvement projects in the coming years. So within this last year, we completed that assessment so that we know exactly how best to allocate our resources in maintaining our facilities. And then finally, I'll just finish up as a reminder to council that as far as on-street parking goes, we will be, since council approved the ordinance changes, we will be supplementing the police department's parking enforcement efforts in the downtown core beginning May 24th. And then talking a little bit about the Rapid, this was obviously a significant project for the city, for us. We launched service on December 4th. And again, this is a project we wanted to highlight under that initiative of preserving the confidence of our policymakers, because this is one that we as an agency, we as a city, working with Public Works, planning, other departments, had committed to delivering not only to council but to our residents. And so to convey the fact that we were able to open on time, on budget, and share really some numbers, if you will, about the opening and kind of the first few months of activity with the Rapid, we thought would certainly be important here in the budget presentation, again, connecting our services to the resources. So again, I won't go through all of these numbers with you, but this should give you an idea of kind of some of the significant data points related to the Rapid. We had more than 31,000 trips our opening month. We had 78 news stories published about the Rapid, so really showed a lot of interest in what we were doing as a city with modernizing our transit services. And then just hitting the ridership real quick, and keep in mind we don't have a full year's worth of data to show you for Rapid, but thought it might be interesting to council for you just to get a sense of about how many trips we provide on a daily basis, and then how that ridership is broken down, if you will, by day. And so this just shows, like, since we opened through the end of March, kind of what our average ridership has been on Mondays. You can see what our ridership has been on Wednesdays, Thursdays, so forth, and on to the weekends. Keep in mind, we don't have as frequent service on the weekends, so we would expect the ridership to be a little bit less. But overall, through March, we are averaging just under 1,200 trips a day on the Rapid. And we would expect that number to increase, because we know as transit professionals that there's ebb and flows with ridership, mainly tracking the weather conditions. And so the winter months are always usually the lightest in ridership, spring and summers where we see most of our ridership. So we would expect these numbers to continue to grow throughout the summer. And then this will give you an idea of our monthly ridership. Again, roughly 32,000 trips in February and March, consistent with where we were in December. And again, believe that we're going to see increases throughout the warmer months. And then finally, last slide on our initiative to preserve the confidence of our policymakers. Really just a quick mention of the Regional Transportation Authority, and that is because, keep in mind, included in the city budget for public transportation and parking is that local contribution the city makes. Of course, the city of Edmond and the city of Norman also make that local contribution to fund the efforts of the Regional Transportation Authority. As you know, the Regional Transportation Authority is currently studying high-capacity transit throughout our region. The project that has the most significance in terms of being further ahead than the others is the North-South commuter rail project that is being proposed. Obviously, we know that this will take a vote of our residents to fund such a project, so lots of decisions still to be made. no timeline established, but nonetheless, the work continues to move forward. And then getting into some of the numbers within our budget, you can find our budget department section in the budget book on page C147. That goes through C156. And this might be a good time to remind council that what I'm presenting to you today is really the overall COTPA budget. So this is all of the resources that are provided or allocated for parking and transportation for our city, right? So that includes some federal grant funds, it includes some revenues we generate from our parking system. So I'm presenting the overall COTPA budget, whereas what is included in your budget book is simply that city portion that supports the public transportation and parking efforts. And I think that'll be a little bit more clear on the pie charts as we go through here. But the overall COTPA budget, as you can see, is about $66.5 million. Again, I know many of you, if not all of you, have seen these slides in the past. No surprise that 73% of our budget goes to bus service. That's fixed route and that's BRT. One of the things I did want to call out here is you'll see that our Norman operations are budgeted at about $3.8 million. And we do have a contractual agreement where we provide operations of the city of Norman's transit system. That's Embark Norman. However, those costs or those expenses that are attributed to that service are fully reimbursed by the city of Norman. So there's no City of Oklahoma City general fund funding that would go into that service. We have to show it in our budget, right? Because we have to have that authority as a trust to be able to spend it. But it does come back to the COTPA Trust, and again, does not impact the City of Oklahoma City's general fund subsidy that goes to public transit. So this is the overall budget. In terms of the resources that support that budget, or the funding sources, we'll look very quickly at off-street parking. So again, probably worth mentioning that our off-street parking system is supported 100% by the user fees, or the individuals parking in our system. What they pay, that's what supports the system. There's no general fund subsidy that goes into the off-street parking. When you look at a breakdown of our funding sources or revenues that come into the parking system, again, not a surprise, about half of the revenue is generated from those that have monthly contractual agreements to park in our garages on a daily basis, although event and daily parking also make up a significant portion of our revenue. And then in terms of funding sources for public transportation, again, the city general fund subsidy at $39.8 million roughly makes up 66% of our overall budget for public transportation services. Although the dollar amount has increased, and we'll look at that here in a minute, the percentage is really about the same as it was last year, at about 66% of the overall funding sources. You can see the next largest piece is our federal funds at about $8.6 million, or 15% of our budget. And then, as you can see, there's that Norman amount I had mentioned, where we actually receive revenue from the city of Norman to help offset, or I should say fully offset, those costs of delivering that service. And then here's a breakdown of our budget, just showing FY24 compared to FY25 proposed budget. You can see, starting with the top line, there's an overall increase of 8%. We'll kind of bottom line it for you. The general fund subsidy amount, that is what's included in the city budget, is up about 9%. And then what you probably notice on this slide, and I'll talk just briefly about it, is the bike share. We have no funding, no budget allocated to the Spokies program in FY25. And so if I could dive into that just a little bit. As you know, departments were asked to make budget reductions. As we looked at possible reductions, we wanted to identify reductions in service that would have the least impact on residents. And so we identified the Spokies Bike Share as probably one of those programs that unfortunately, we'd love to keep it around, but if we're in an environment of looking at reducing our budget, that is a service that we are proposing for elimination. Again, thinking it would have the least amount of impact on residents. Now, with that said, we are working on a plan. We are optimistic. It is not finalized yet, but we have approached a private micro-mobility provider, AKA a company that runs the scooters. And we have asked them about taking over the responsibilities of the Spokies Bike Share system. We've got so far as to at least propose a term sheet to this private provider. And I won't go through all the details, but the general gist is we have these assets. We don't generate positive return on these assets, right? It has to be subsidized, but nonetheless, as a city, we have these assets. So would the private sector be willing to step in, manage these assets for us, and then they retain, whatever that revenue is? And so again, there's still a lot of pieces to put together, but we've had some very productive conversations. And again, we've got so far as to where we've proposed a term sheet. And at this point in time in our proposed budget, we're looking at eliminating that service and ideally trying to be able to keep that service available to the residents, yet without a general fund subsidy going to the bike share program. And then next slide, major changes. Again, we had our normal changes in personnel-related costs. I think you've seen this in several budget presentations, but this is just that increase in costs that are required for a same service level budget. We did have to add some funding for bus repair and parts. One of the biggest budget challenges we've had is trying to keep up with the increased cost of bus parts. We did a little sampling of the 10 most common parts that we purchase and have looked over the last couple of years, and we have seen about a 53% increase in kind of that common group of parts that we have to routinely purchase. The other thing that's driving those costs is availability. We continue to have difficulty getting parts on a just-in-time basis, which we really took for granted for many years. So now as a result, when parts are available, we are sometimes holding twice the stock that we normally would because we don't know when we're going to be able to get them again. So that in turn has increased inventory levels. So higher parts prices, building our inventories up, have really led to a situation where we've had to have some additional funding for that. I'll try to go through the rest of these relatively quickly. We did see some increases in our overall streetcar operating costs, about $211,000. We added some funding to shore up our overtime budget. It goes without saying, as a transit agency, we always have overtime built into our budget. And then the $291,000 increase, this is the local contribution I mentioned that the city makes as a member of the RTA. We've talked about Spokies. And then the other reduction is, again, just to try to meet that budget target reduction, we reduced the general fund subsidy by another $311,000. And so that really kind of concludes the kind of overview of our services, how we are spending and what we're accomplishing with the resources that are included in the budget. One of the things that we did and we do as an organization is really try to recognize our transit professionals, as many departments do for their professionals, for the work that they accomplish throughout the year. And as I kind of alluded to through the budget presentation, is a pretty significant year for us with the launch of the Rapid, with the implementation of OKC Moves. And so through our coordinates meetings. These are meetings that we have twice a year where we get all employees together to just talk about what's going on within the organization and hear from them and try to answer some questions. We shared this video with our employees, so we thought you might appreciate it as a way to conclude our presentation.
2023 was quite a year. We launched Go Norman, relining Norman routes throughout the city and opening a new transit center there.
We implemented OKC Moves, transforming our Oklahoma City fixed route system to provide better service to our customers.
And we introduced an entirely new service line with Rapid Northwest.
Any one of these projects would be huge on their own, but 3 in 3 months, monumental.
World class.
And all of that happened because of you.
Extra hours, long days, new systems, new processes. We were in uncharted territory, and together we mapped out the way forward.
Going the extra mile can take a toll. The pressure was substantial, and your personal sacrifices were real. So
Thank you.
Thank you for a job well done.
Thank you for making it happen for the customers who rely on us every single day.
And thank you for showing up with your whole hearts,
Eager to learn.
And ready to serve our community and each other.
as we look forward to 2024. Let's keep going, never stop.
All right. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Just one question. First, thank you for the presentation. I know we were talking about some of our routes that we have more interurban for the urban core, but we do have some of our residents that live in our far northeast part of our city. Would you help me to help explain where we are with working with routes to make sure we have a connection and connectivity from the far part of that community to the core, and also just inner community of how we're trying to improve it, please?
Sure, yes, thank you for the question. So one of the things that is included in the OKC Moves plan are some zones that we've identified as microtransit zones. In addition to what's been identified in OKC Moves, we as transit professionals within Embark have been also working to identify what, again, we're calling microtransit zones within Oklahoma City. These zones are generally located on the fringe of our service network, right? So if you think about it, Oklahoma City's 620 square miles. We cover about 240-ish square miles with our fixed route system. So to Councilwoman Nice's point, in some cases that leaves individuals or residents kind of on the fringe, excuse me, of the city without a real good public transportation connection. And it's not always the most efficient use of resources to send a fixed route bus to the far ends of our city limits, right? And so with microtransit, what we hope to accomplish, and we hope to begin introducing microtransit as a complement to the coming MAPS 4 BRTs, what we hope to accomplish through microtransit is to establish a zone. And so let's say, for example, in far east Oklahoma City, where we know there are limited transit options now. I mean, in fact, we have Route 19, which really serves that community for a short period in the morning, short period in the afternoon. Does not necessarily have all-day service, but we acknowledge that is a needed transportation connection for those that live in that area. What we can do with microtransit is we can set up a zone, and we would have a much smaller vehicle, a van, if you will. It would work similar to like an Uber or a Lyft service would work, except that instead of someone using their phone to, get an Uber to come get them, they would get an Embark operator. And so the idea is we would set up a fare for that zone, and with microtransit, we would pick someone up at their point of origin, maybe that's their house or their employer, wherever, and then we would take them either to another place within that zone, or we would take them to the nearest fixed route bus connection in that zone, which then gives them, right, the ability to connect to the entire system. We would do that for a single fare, if you will. Obviously, we wouldn't know exactly what that fare would be at this point in time, but that's the idea. And to me, in my mind, especially thinking of East Oklahoma City, that's actually potentially an improvement over the existing service that they're getting today. They could have basically a door-to-door pickup and drop-off, unless, of course, they wanted to connect to the larger system, and we would take them to, at that point in time, a nice covered shelter, also funded through MAPS 4.
Thank you for that. And I hope within the coming months, we'll be able to meet with this part of our community to express, and educate and help everyone, all of us to understand, us included, what's best, the routes that are best for those that live there, and maybe the ways that we can accommodate how we can work together. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Jason, just a follow-up question on the microtransit. So as you were talking about that, I'm thinking about our trainees at the FAA, Mike Monroney Center, and transportation, in a microtransit area type thing. Have we considered the same sort of scenario for far southwest Oklahoma City?
We haven't looked at far southwest Oklahoma City in terms of microtransit. I do know the RTA is studying that area in detail. In fact, tomorrow the RTA board will receive a recommendation from the consultants on high-capacity service to the airport, with the idea of building in a shuttle service from whatever that high-capacity service is at the airport to FAA.
All right. Thank you.
Hello. A few things. First, gratitude for, I think the Bus Rapid Transit launch is, I think its success speaks for itself with the ridership. I really want to express gratitude for the operators. They're just so friendly, working such long hours. I mean, it's just very noticeable. In fact, so noticeable that it's not just when we launched it, but yesterday I took the Bus Rapid Transit from biked to Classen from Paseo, took the BRT down to Blackwelder, and for the first time did the exchange to Route 3. You saw in the OKC Moves how he said the Route 3 now is there. So I transferred the Route 3 to then take it up Western to get to Penn, because the Target at Memorial and Penn was the only one that had the new Legend of Zelda game, and my mom had given me gift cards for my birthday unspent, and I needed to get up there, and so I did. So I wanted to use this as a practice transfer moment. But so I'm probably the no, there were several people with me who also had their bikes on the 3 or on the Rapid. And so I bring this up because, just to, remind everyone I'm a transit user. I also have a car. I'm always a bit surprised when I meet someone who says to me, they're like, I didn't know you had a car, because of the use of my bike, or when I can use public transit. But for me, yesterday, that trip of biking from Paseo to get to the BRT on Classen, and then needing to bike from the stop there at Memorial and Penn through the vast Target parking lot to then get back to the southbound stop at Penn and Memorial, which, by the way, if you have not crossed Memorial and Penn by foot or on a bike yet, go do that and just see how, and I did. On the one hand, I'm happy about the railing that exists for the pedestrian walkway. On the other hand, I don't know, y'all. That was dodgy. But I mentioned that to say that the bike component is important here, and I'm really worried about us removing Spokie's bike share from our budget, particularly as we are heading to a place where, with the regional transit vote approaching us over the next couple years, that first mile, last mile connection is something we should be prioritizing right now in terms of how does somebody, once they have arrived at a destination, how can they maybe finish that next half mile or few blocks to get to their final destination. So like, again, I wasn't just telling a story about what happened yesterday. I wanted to make clear that once I got to Memorial and Penn, thanks to the BRT transferring me then to the regular Route 3, I still had a ways to go to get to my final destination. And my bike is what got me there. The return route home, once more, I had to go a little bit further even for that stop, that shelter, and cross the way that I did, again by bike. And then once I got back to Blackwelder and Northwest Expressway, where the BRT station is, I hopped on the BRT to 23rd and Classen and then biked the rest of the way from 23rd and Classen back into the Paseo. I say this because this, and Jason already knows for me, and I'm guessing most of council does, anyone who's paid attention to me for the last few years, these conversations about public transit are not abstract to me. They're truly not abstract. They're lived experience, and I see people using our service, as I did yesterday, where the public transportation system is truly their only option. There is no car. There is no car, right? There's no car. And it's how they're getting to work and education and church or synagogue or whatever it is, mosque, you name it. I just did a simple Google search here. I typed in bike share and cities. And an article came up. Indianapolis offers free bike share passes to residents. That's right now, that just started this month, May 9th. Starting today, it says, Indianapolis will be the first city in the United States to offer all county residents access to a free annual bike share pass. And we're gonna do the opposite? Like, good, I'm glad that was the reaction from the crowd. I just don't understand, and remember I began my remarks with extreme gratitude. This is not launching into just mean-spirited, you know, I'm mad at Embark, and of course Jason's one of my favorite human beings in Oklahoma, which is, you know, that's quite the title. But I'm also, put it on a shirt, but I'm also just, it is $200,000 is what this program costs right now, and this is what we're gonna do to try and balance the budget on the back of a bike. That is such limited imagination. It's limited imagination, particularly when Indianapolis, if I recall, was the city competing with us when we came up with the idea for maps in the first place. When we came up with maps for the first place, we were competing against Indianapolis for, I believe, American Airlines, United Airlines, and they said they wouldn't come here because we did not have good sidewalks, crosswalks, good parks, bike infrastructure, which means bike lanes. And even when we gave them all of this economic incentive through a voter-approved sales tax increase, they said they would not come here, and we went back to the drawing board, and we created maps because of that. Created maps because of that decision that that private company who rejected our taxpayer funds. That's what happened. That's how we got maps 1 through 4. And MAPS 4 is about to invest nearly $100 million, you'll recall, in sidewalks, bike lanes, trails, and streetlights, because we are continuing that investment in the quality of life of our people. And we must continue down that path. We must, right now, not cut this from our budget. What we must do is anticipate that there will come a time, God willing, voters approve the regional transit. And when they do, and they get off from Norman, from taking the train here, and they get to Santa Fe Station, there should be a bike share program inventory waiting there for them to be able to get on it to ride to their next destination, whether that be a Thunder game or Memorial Park in Ward 2. There should be a bike inventory waiting for people at key destinations in this city, in Paseo, in Uptown, in Asian District, 39th LGBT District, Stockyards, Capitol Hill, Windsor District, Market at East Point, Adventure District. There should be bikes waiting for them to finish their journey. And for those of you going, well, there's not enough people biking right now, build it and they will come. The BRT is proof of that. Route 18 on the east side, which once had our ridership, when we increased the ridership to 30 minutes, an 80% increase in ridership. We have to invest in the services up front. And for too long, this city council, not just the people currently, but for years before us, did not prioritize funding for this service. And then it became a self-fulfilling prophecy of when people didn't use the service. But the truth of it is there are people who depend on this service to get to their basic needs. I'll just conclude by saying this. When you read this article about what they did in Indianapolis this month, 2 days ago, when you look, how did they fund it? How did they fund it? You might ask city manager, how did they do that? Well, they did it this way. One, they relied partially on a federal grant called the Construction Mitigation and Air Quality Grant, combined with local funds from the city of Indianapolis. And wouldn't you know it, I had to look up who this next group was. I thought I recognized them, but I'm not a sports, it's not my big thing. But I thought I recognized this name, the Pacers Sports and Entertainment. Now, who are they? It is their basketball team. Our imagination lacks here. Where's the Thunder? Bring them to the table. Where's the Paycom? I mean, there's private sector people. We have got to start thinking outside of the box here. So, can we go back to the drawing board? And that's my concern, by the way, about these budget presentations. When they happen, it's like the cake is baked. It's like when I bring up stuff like this during these horseshoe moments, it's like nothing changes in all my 5 years. Nothing that I can remember, and if I'm wrong, but nothing changes from when a critique comes from this horseshoe about the budget, between the budget and the final vote. Like there's no going back to say, you know, that was a good idea. We should maybe rethink that. So I'm asking in this moment, can we reach out to Indianapolis, our once foes, and be like, how did you do this? And can we cobble together something comparable? It doesn't even have to be free. I don't even want free. I'm just saying they did it free. I'm not asking for free. I'm saying they did it for free. They're doing it this month for free. We beat them once before. We put their face in it after we came back and did maps. We're kind of the envy of the world with maps. Like, come on, $200,000, that's wild. So I have more to say, but it's on other things related to this. Can we pause? What do you guys got to say about this? Where am I wrong?
So first, I would say that the goal is not to have this service go away. So I think it's you have to look at the context of the entire budget. So it's not to have the service go away, it's to privatize the service. The service would still be available. So we're still trying to make the service available where it's accessible. The transit budget, if you look at it in whole, we worked hard to preserve services for transit. The transit budget is still going up by $3.4 million. I mean, we can definitely look at options that are out there, but within this budget to try to preserve transit services, this was an option that we could still provide service, just provide service in a different way. And so that's what's proposed within this budget.
Well, and again, I am not blind. I am aware. I appreciate the response. I see the increase, for instance, in streetcar operations. Like, I am aware of this. I am aware that we have added, what's about $4 or $5 million annually now for the new bus rapid transit. I know it's giving you heartburn to think about the east side and the south side additional BRTs, to think, well, where are we going to find another $4 or $5 million for each of those routes. I am aware of that. I guess what I'm asking for here is some sort of commitment that if this is going to become a privatized service as we are negotiating a contract with them, can we not turn and look to what Indianapolis is doing? Can we not look at that as some sort of best practice right now and go, give them guidance, give the private sector guidance, like in our contract to say, you heard earlier in the Adventure District, can we not say to them like, can we figure out how to have a handful of bikes in Adventure District at 39th Street waiting for people that when they come here for tourism and they hop on the BRT, or when they're just here generally, they know if they want to go out for drinks at 39th Street or they want to go check out art in Paseo, that they will have a bike to move around when they get there. That's what I'm asking for, is some sort of vision here about how when people are visiting the city, visiting, number one, but then moving around the city, our current residents, that we are investing in their infrastructure needs to move around. So if it's gonna be privatized, can we at least not set the standards beyond even what you and I initially talked about? I think when I was willing to go, okay, maybe, but when I look at Indianapolis doing this, it's just kind of, that's.
Well, and I'd like to add to the point of the privatization.
It's both.
I guess one of my questions is, would this operator be required to have the same fee structure that we do?
Yeah, so our goal and our discussions at this point have essentially been from the customer standpoint, they really wouldn't notice, right? We would keep the current pricing structure, the payment methodology, the branding. I mean, Spokies would still exist as most of us know it today. It would just simply be operated by the private sector rather than us. We're happy to look at, I'm sorry, kind of going back to Councilman Cooper's thought. I mean, we're happy to look at discussing different deployment techniques. I mean, we've pretty much been deploying downtown. Private sector may be willing to deploy in nodes throughout the city. Discussion we haven't had.
I think, because I think to Councilman Cooper's point, because one of my concerns is we still don't have a contract. So if they don't agree, then it's just not a service that is being offered. And I think to the other piece is that in a privatized service, they're responding. They can take requests, but they don't have to honor them and aren't accountable to the public in the same way when it's operated by the public. As well as because there's sort of a profit motive, I guess, depending on how the agreement is structured, they will want to just operate in places where they perceive that they can make money versus where the service is needed. I've regularly wished that I could take a Spokies to the stockyards or help to supplement like taking the bus, but then have the flexibility. Like actually recently I went to a meeting in the stockyards, took the bus there. It wasn't gonna run past the time that I needed to come home. And I walked back across the bridge to get to a Spokies in essentially the farmer's market district. A meeting previously where that happened, I just took a Uber home, which, you know, is way more expensive and is a hardship on my budget. So, I think that there's always, to my concern about privatization or in general allowing public infrastructure to be operated by private entities, because it takes away that public accountability through our mechanism of being elected by the public and funded by public interest. So yeah, I would love to see us revisit this. Like similarly, as sort of was like, okay, yeah, I guess this is something that might need to happen. But when I think about in comparison to such a large budget and a line item of $100,000, $200,000, I know is something, but it's not comparatively to a lot of other things it seems like we could be looking at.
Well, I think we can keep looking at this and keep working with the private sector company if we can provide the services at a level that we desire. If we can't get to that point, then we could revisit and look at all the options that we have. It's just we've got to bring forward a balanced budget. It's difficult to balance the budget, and it does come down to $100,000 questions, $50,000 questions when we're adding that all together. And so this was the best option to not reduce weekend service, evening service, other things that we were trying to preserve. And so we can take a look at that. I still think it's a good proposal, and I think we can provide some options there and work with them to make sure that we're providing services still for our community.
So my ask, I have a very specific ask, is I would like, as we're doing these negotiations with this private sector provider, for us, and Embark's really good at what I'm about to ask, in fact, but can we not reach out to Indianapolis, talk to them, how did you do what you just did? What were some of the stakes, or not stakes, what were some of the things that you all did to make this possible, and try and figure out what's replicable from what they've accomplished there. And then come back and tell us what you got. At the very least, is that a possibility?
Sure.
And then let me just also say, the mayor of Indianapolis right here, what's the goal? A cleaner, healthier, and more mobile city. It will help with traffic congestion and pollution as well. Like, that is the mayor's stated vision, and I just don't hear any of that here. I don't know. This is just like wild to me, I have to say. And I can sense some people being a little annoyed that we're spending this much time on it. I'll tell you what, if you find this detour annoying, go for a bus ride with me. Go for a bus ride with me and see who's using this service. See who's using this service and see them put their bike on the front of the bus. Like, see that happen alongside me. Be annoyed then beside me, because I can sense it right now. This matters. This is not a small detail. This last mile, first mile connection is something I learned when Mayor Cornett appointed me to the Public Transportation Board. And every year that I go to some sort of transit conference, they emphasize first mile, last mile connection. This is not from the Communist Manifesto. This is from the American Public Transportation Association best practices. Like, don't try me on this. Like, I'm just getting kind of just annoyed, I have to say. I'm sorry, this is just such small ball. And when the Pacers are engaging, man, and it's like, come on. I don't know. Okay, next. That's just bikes. Next. Is OKC Moves talking about, I don't believe that it is, but 15-minute frequency on 23rd Street, which I'm to understand is one of the most well-traveled routes in the whole system. Can we get there? Is that one of the priorities for us in OKC Moves?
So,
And
OKC
Walker. That's my next one. I'm sorry, Jason.
Okay. Not sure about Walker. I'll have to check. I have an answer on 23rd. 23rd, I believe, is identified as a high-frequency corridor. There are others identified in OKC Moves, but dialing that in even more specific, taking it out of OKC Moves, I think I've had an opportunity to visit with several council members when we think about what we could do with Route 23 in light of implementation of the MAPS 4 BRTs. Again, we'll be in a similar situation where some of those BRTs will serve some areas currently being served by fixed route. We'll be able to repurpose those assets. So, take a bus from here and move it over to there. And one of the corridors that we're looking at, whether it be through OKC Moves or not, we believe when we implement the MAPS 4 BRTs, we would have an opportunity to be able to increase frequency on 23rd Street. It depends on how many buses. I think with one additional bus, we can get it down to 20 minutes. Trying to recall that from memory, but that's generally where we're at. So yeah, that is at top of mind. If we cannot get to that corridor before we implement MAPS 4 BRTs, because keep in mind, we implement that plan as resources allow, we do believe at a minimum we have an opportunity when the other BRTs launch to address 23.
Well, I appreciate you just, well, A, thanks for prioritizing that. And then B, I'm glad you brought up the BRT because as I've been looking at the proposed route for the maps for Northeast BRT, I'm of course excited to see all the places it will serve on the east side. My concern is that when it goes, from MLK on 23rd, it will go west, but only as far west as the Capitol, right? That's what I've seen from the map.
Yeah.
How far west is
Well-
would the 23rd Street BRT be going?
So the 23rd would go over to MLK?
So I'm saying that, so I know it will go all the way out to Adventure District.
Yep.
When it's on its return journey back into the urban core, when it gets to 23rd Street, it's going to turn on 23rd Street and head west.
Yes.
And when it does, the furthest west it's going to go is our Oklahoma State Capitol building. Is that right? Where? How far west?
That's one variation of one of the earlier routes that was proposed. You know, we narrowed it down to 3. And currently, the route that I believe is advancing and will be presented to council will actually not have the BRT serving the Capitol.
The state didn't put in on this.
So what, it'll stay what, on MLK?
Kelly?
Thank you for the clarification. What I'm getting at is the problem is with the BRT for the east side, which again, I support, I'm excited about it. It was a priority for me in MAPS 4. What I am trying to get everyone to think about is that new bus rapid transit from the east side is only going to head down 23rd Street as far west as far as it sounds like Kelly. The Northwest bus rapid transit is on Classen, meaning there is a gap between Kelly and Classen. So if someone is trying to get from 23rd and Classen to 23rd and MLK using the bus rapid transit system, that is not a straight line for them to do it. There's not a service. There's a service interruption, a gap in service between, it was either going to be the Capitol or it was going to be Kelly and Classen, which for me is why I've become obsessed, as you can hear right now, with how do we then, if that's going to be true with the BRT, that there's that gap in service, what sort of, how can we use the regular bus fleet to bridge the gap? Yes. Thank you, whoever just said that in the crowd, because sometimes when I'm talking like this at length up here, I feel like it's getting lost on people.
And Councilperson Cooper, just for your reference, these are things that we have been talking about. So I think it would be important for us to discuss them all together collectively, so at least you would understand and know how we're trying to connect all of these things, because my priority and a few of us in the MAPS 4 conversation for Northeast as far as BRT is concerned was for it to go 23rd east and stop as far east as it could. Where now we're looking at other creative ways, as he just talked about and forementioned, of how we can still connect our community in the BRT if they want to do BRT, or just inter-community if they want to do inter-community. We need more funding, clearly, and these are the things we continue to talk about as we see the budget for the decreases of certain things that are prioritized in comparison to others. MAPS 4 is going to help us to continue to reimagine how we want this BRT to look, because I was hoping that through this BRT going east, that this would also help us revitalize 23rd going east. However, now we have to look at how we can incrementally do those things. But it can be done. So I'm hoping we can have those discussions collectively.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Councilwoman, and I think what I'd like is, you know, from the city leadership side of things, like, these sorts of conversations, like, help us, like, by arranging meetings, and Embark's pretty good at that, but like we need to be all sitting at the table talking about how do we coordinate the MAPS 4 Northeast with the MAPS 4 Northeast BRT with the currently implemented Northwest Classen BRT, and what does that regular bus fleet service look like in between there? And again, I'm obsessed with it because I have people tell me all the time in my ward asking why we don't have bus service there. And so I'm going on about it up here because I'm their voice. And so this is the only opportunity I really get at a budget presentation to bring it up.
I'm happy to sit down with you and, of course, any of council, and have done some of that. But Councilwoman Nice's point, when you think about the MAPS 4 BRT serving Northeast, it really opens up possibilities to look at Route 2, look at Route 22, look at Route 23. So it's kind of a holistic approach to how you would make changes in kind of that whole area. So happy to go through some of those options with you. And again, nothing has been decided, but we do feel like we have some really strong solutions.
And it's just two final things. One is the executive director of the Paseo, who was here at the most recent council meeting where you're standing, she brought up to me, so I've been going to their weekly meetings as we've done the streetscape for the last year. And we had a tourist in town within the last month who was staying downtown and then wanted to go to the Paseo. And a simple bus route on Walker would have gotten her there, but that doesn't exist. And so right now, the BRT is, Jason's very well aware, so this is more for public edification. The BRT is on Classen, so what we are doing as a city government is asking people who live in Edgemere, Jefferson Park, Central Park, Paseo, if they want to use our service, they have to walk all the way to Classen to use it. So if you're on a street like Harvey or Hudson or Robinson, you have to walk. By the way, right now on broken sidewalks, MAPS 4 is about to come in and replace sidewalks, but in the interim, you're walking zigzagging to Classen, again, first mile, last mile sort of stuff. Whereas Walker would make a lot of sense if there were a bus on Walker from downtown Oklahoma City going through Heritage, through Mesta, stopping at 23rd and Walker, where the Drake, where the Tower Theater, like there's important recreational things right there that are just full all the time. It could go through Paseo, again, recreational, and jobs, these are people who work at these places, right? You could go through Crown Heights to 50th and then figure out from there, do you connect to the east side or do you connect to the west side? You all could figure that out, but Walker is something people have been asking me about for a long time. And again, I kind of wrote it off because I was like, well, but Classen's not that far. But now I have seniors asking me that. And I'm like, yeah, maybe that is a bit further for a 70-year-old to ask them to go from Hudson and 28th to Classen, right? Or a mom with the stroller or a dad with the stroller. So I'm asking us to think about 23rd and Walker, not just in terms of the current connectivity needs, but ultimately, as the RTA, God willing, comes online, how do you connect these improvements to this bigger system? Okay, so Walker. And then finally, I turned to Councilman Carter earlier and I asked him, what would a bus connection from Northwest Expressway and Council look like along Council to the outlet malls? Could someone from the far northwest side of our city in a straight line better connect to jobs and shopping and whatever? Just, in other words, just like a west side route that is just like a line serving people. And he said they'd use it. So I don't know. I guess what I'm saying on that one is there are probably places that we're writing off that public transportation needs because, it's the peripheral parts of our city in some way, and we think that sometimes the people who moved out there have cars or, suburban lifestyle, but sidewalks and public transit matter to them as well too, I think. So, I'm happy to be in conversations with Bradley and Embark to kind of coordinate a bit better because our wards you know, they intersect. But yeah, West Side is something I'm thinking about too. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason. Next up, we have Melinda McMillan Miller, our Parks and Recreation Director, to present the Parks budget.
All right, good morning. Thank you for your attention this morning. The Parks and Recreation budget is on page 117 in your budget book. My name is Melinda McMillan Miller. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director. This year for our proposed FY25 budget, it composes of multiple different options, which is our operating budget, but also our non-operating budget and a capital budget. The non-operating budget tends to be consisted of most things like our special purpose funds, proceeds of the sales of parks, lands, Hathaway Trust, our 405 Football Club, and other MAPS 1 funds that were left over for maintenance of the Bricktown Canal. And also within our capital budget, which I'll highlight more later on in the presentation, our CIP-funded programs, ARPA funds, development impact fees, as well as GeoBond projects for development in FY25. So the operating budget, which is more what we're here to present today, is broken down by 5 different operations divisions within the department. Those are through the Recreation, Health, and Wellness programs, Natural Resources, Grounds Management, Partnerships, and also Administration. To highlight our major budget changes this year for FY25, we have, of course, an increase in costs for our personnel salaries, wages, benefits, et cetera. We also are increasing our partnership funding support for our Riverfront Redevelopment Authority trust groups, also through our Economic Development trust groups. We are expanding the operating partnership with Community Action Agency at the Minnis Lakeview Community Center, expanding operational partnership with Police Athletic League at the Schilling Center, and adding operational funding for 3 positions for the up-and-coming opening of the Woodson Athletic Complex. So to support all that, who is Parks and Recreation? So we serve over 706,000 residents in Oklahoma City, and we do that through 190 full-time employees. But the unsung heroes are oftentimes our 355 part-time employees that oftentimes kind of go under the radar, but we could not do our operations without all of them. We also employ over 91 seasonal employees during the summertime. We are hiring lifeguards, just a plug there, please. So in total, over 636 people, staff, employees, who provide our programs maintenance support for parks. We have over 174 parks. We have over 9,000 acres of land and over 194 medians and rights-of-ways the Parks Department touches every single day. Among all of that, we'll have, within all those properties and all those acres, we have over 100 miles of multi-use trails, which I know is a great commuting source for our trail users. Community centers, spray grounds, swimming pools, family aquatic centers. Between our athletic fields, we now have 29 premier athletic fields, which means they are lighted, irrigated, maintained at a much higher level for better safety standards. 5 golf courses, the only municipal fish hatchery in the country, and also 2 event centers. We do all of this to help support the council's priority of having an enhanced recreational opportunities and community wellness. We can accomplish that priority for you by having quality recreational opportunities and promoting healthy living and help community well-being through those healthy lifestyles. We also provide convenient and attractive, well-maintained parks and those facilities. So to help provide quality recreational opportunities, we really focus in on our recreations division. Within that division, that is led by Lisa Hubble, who's our newest recreation manager in our audience today. I actually stole her from Jason, but he's still speaking to me, so I guess we're still on good terms. Within the recreation budget, you'll see the major change this year is that we actually are consolidating through our aquatics program. We had 3 aquatics coordinator positions that we actually eliminated and repurposed those salary savings because we're reshuffling how our aquatics and recreation programs are happening. So those positions were eliminated, but we gained back a new field operations supervisor, which will actually be over all of our camps and adaptive programs. Within our quality opportunities with our aquatics program, athletics, and general recreation, we have had to become very strategic, if you would, on how we are spreading our dollars out. Within that strategy is really analyzing all of our different facilities. We've conducted multiple studies to understand our facility conditions, understanding the market of the community and the needs that they have, the changing demographics through all of our different communities, and really analyzing how we can best support all of these changes with a very lean and strategic budget. All at the same time, trying to be very aware that we are the stewards of the public's dollars and their facilities. So the more often that we can look at this and strategically decide how we can become more competitive, how we can support our partners, and how we can each of us join together and be successful is how we're really refocusing and modernizing our Oklahoma City Parks and Recreation Department. Part of that strategic move is looking at our Menace Lakeview Center and our Schilling Center. Both facilities, we had been approached by partners in the community and also requests from the community for needs that the Parks Department just could not perform. One of those was at Menace Lakeview specifically, is understanding that we had a partner in Community Action Agency already present in the building. Community Action Agency worked with us on looking at targeting how they could help support the population in that area, which was through a Head Start program. The Parks Department does not do daycare. We are not that daycare provider. That is not one of our best practices for Parks and Recreation Department. However, we have dynamic partners across the whole community that does that extremely well. Community Action Agency already provides Head Start programs at the McKinley Center and also the Diggs Park Center. So when they approached us about this opportunity, or actually we approached them about this opportunity and they discussed it with their board, their staff, multiple conversations were had. And we agreed that the Menace facility will now be operated by the Community Action Agency, where they will provide a Head Start program, but they will also continue to honor all of the facility rentals, the public's use of the gym, the public's use of the facility for like family reunions, get-togethers, whatever have you, basketball practices, that kind of thing, will still be held in that facility by Community Action Agency. That just the Parks Department has divested itself of the facility. However, the Parks Department will continue to operate the park property itself, the spray ground, the new shade structures that are going to be constructed there with the MAPS program and GEO bond dollars. We'll continue to maintain the property. As well as at Schilling Center is kind of targeted the same way. We have Wheeler Middle School right there adjacent to the property. The Police Athletic League operate out of our Lions Center at Draper Park. They are supporting 3 different middle schools that they bus to the Lions Center. The largest group that they provide services to out of Lions Center is actually from Wheeler Middle School. So as the Police Athletic League actually already rent our gymnasium at Schilling all the time. That's where they really host all of their athletic activities and everything for the children. And so as we were, again, looking at strategically at the facility itself and looking at the population around it to say what programs do they need, talking with the school district about what programs they need to support the children, they really came to us and said, this is a great opportunity. So again, we don't do gang prevention. We don't do violence prevention with youth. That is something the Police Athletic League is extremely good at doing. So we partnered with them where they will now take the Schilling facility and they will operate it and again, just kind of grow their facility, grow that program in that target area of Oklahoma City. Let's see. Go ahead and switch slides, please. Thank you. Another thing that with our recreational group, between athletics, aquatics, and general recreation, to highlight out of our LFR measures is just the growth in our league participation. We really took a nosedive with COVID, and we are really seeing a rebound finally in that. We've also done a lot of different focuses in athletics to provide other opportunities between partners with youth rugby or through youth football or through different soccer programs with our 405 Soccer Club. It's really grown a lot in that area, and we've also been able to capitalize on the investment we've made in those quality athletic fields. So more people are saying, man, Oklahoma City's got the greatest fields to play on. They're so green, like, can we go play on that? And so we're capitalizing on those investments that we've been making over time. To also help promote healthy living and community well-being is our Natural Resources Division. This division's budget increase was really just predominantly due to salaries and wages. And this group, of course, is led by Scott Copeland, our division manager now over the Natural Resources Group, probably for at least 6 years now. Has it been that long? I think so. The whole reason for natural resources is kind of a different angle than recreation. With natural resources, they really focus on the more natural environment. They focus on gardening. They focus on growing food, healthy living activities combining with nature. They also look at how we can do stormwater mitigation, better management of natural areas, and really focusing on how we can help decrease depression issues, increase quality of life issues, and overall health and wellness for the community at large in a different way than just through athletics or sports or community engagement. This group is probably also going to be looking at assisting with OU Health Sciences Center and the Indian Health Clinic on a new initiative we're approaching with them on Park RX program, where we're helping our medical providers, who are also some of our most stressed people. We're asking them to help provide medical care to all of us. At the same time, they also need care and wellness too. So through that program, we're helping to get them more engaged in our trail system, but also through Martin Park Nature Center, Will Rogers Gardens, to help address some of their anxiety and stress issues. Again, that participation number just keeps climbing. So post-COVID, our participations and people visiting Martin Park Nature Center is expected to just keep growing and growing over time. To help provide those well-maintained parks and facilities, that's where we turn to our grounds management division. Jacob Webb is our leader of that group. He has been our division head now for 2 years, and he's completely adapted to the position of really managing the largest body of employees that we have there. Within the grounds management division, we'll have some changes. Go ahead and play that. We'll have some changes within the staffing there because we are adding the new Woodson Sports Complex. The Woodson Sports Complex will receive 3 new positions that are really dedicated to maintenance between athletics, field support, and then also grounds managers. The grounds division overall takes care of the park maintenance of the Parks Department. They actually look at 111 playgrounds every week, and that's pretty amazing. That just kind of goes to the whole safety of what we do every day. Besides maintaining the actual athletic fields and trails, they also support all of our special events. In FY24, we had over 951 events in our park system, and that is a lot of events. So we have a dedicated crew of people who take those phone calls, help with the rentals of facilities, or they help with special event permits, revocable permits, and also film permits. Grounds maintenance also takes care of over 9,000 acres, of course, but that 9,000 acres includes the public properties of the Water Utilities Trust, the Oklahoma River, all of our parks and park lands that they mow and clean every single week. And our urban forestry group, we can't forget our tree huggers. They take care of almost 20,000 inventoried individual trees in our urban canopy. We hope to expand that group in the future because more trees is always more fun. Yes, it is. So part of our growth in our department and really strategic changes and the things that are really important to our residents are things like well-mowed parks. So we don't want to have people, at one time back in FY21 and 22, we were growing out of an economic dip with the effects of COVID. And at that time, we were not able to meet our LFR desired target of mowing parks every 2 weeks. We slid back to every 3 weeks. And even then, we were just even a little bit past 3 weeks. We had a lot of problems. So people would go to a park and they're walking their small dog and they would lose their dog. So we were trying to mitigate that and change that and get back to that 2-week mowing cycle. So we did a really big concerted effort of getting back to contract maintenance of our far-aways and rights-of-ways where we don't recreate and play, but really focus on the areas we do play, which is in our parks. So we are happy to report that we are back up to our target of meeting that every 2-week mowing cycle every single 2 weeks. So we're happy about that one. To also support community partners, we have a large budget for our public and private partnership group. And this is several different, these are 5 of the big ones that we can talk about in this group, is our river sport function. And between river sport, Myriad Gardens, Scissortail Park, our First Americans Museum, and also our Civic Center Foundation, James Stewart Golf Course, OKC Beautiful, and a water grant that we give to, that neighborhoods can apply for to pay for their irrigation bill to beautify their public areas in their parks or in their neighborhoods. Those community partners contribute a lot of opportunities for us to be able to support participations in different ways across the city. So for example, if you look at the rounds of golf, last year we had over 327,000 rounds of golf just in our public courses, which is unbelievable. This last year, Lincoln Golf Course itself is going to hit over 100,000 rounds in one course. So it's just been really phenomenal to see the growth of our golf system since the, COVID. COVID kind of spurred people's interest back into golf because it's a great recreational element that you can do that you don't have to be real close to people. So it has really encouraged that game of golf and is growing the game of golf quite a bit. Our community partners are also part of our unsung heroes, and so a lot of this is the volunteer hours and the sweat equity as well as materials and supplies they put into our parks and also our public spaces. So our volunteer hours grew, and again, I think a lot of this is actually spurred from COVID. People were working differently during COVID, and they also had a little more free time to come out, and they really reinvested in their community. And our volunteer hours just keep growing, and again, next year, we expect to hit over 215,000 hours of volunteer time. And all of these things are supported, of course, by our administration division. That division is led by myself, but also Scott Fairman, our assistant director, Mike Smith, our finance division head, and also Brandon Boydston, who leads our park planning and development group. Within that system, or that self, we have, of course, our marketing public relations group, which hopefully if all of you haven't seen a Channel 4 news time yet, or if you will soon see Fox 25, we're having a lot of different great connectivity to the public about all the different functions and activities and amenities that the Parks Department has for everybody. Again, financial management's a big part of it, having our planning development group really on the ball about meeting with the community to talk about changes or improvements they would like to see their parks. They work very closely with our MAPS office and Public Works office to help create those capital improvements in our different parks locations. We also support a lot of commissions and committees. So there's 5 different groups that we support, being the Parks Commission, Golf Commission, Game and Fish Commission, Riverfront Redevelopment Authority Trust, and the Trails Advisory Committee. And of course, those facility management things, since we have so many facilities, we had to manage those as well as our HR support. So to move on to our capital budget highlights, like I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, I really want to highlight these 4 projects that are coming up very soon. We're very excited to start launching. Dewey Park is actually been in design, meeting with the public. We're at the point now where we're getting all of our plans through plan review and development services. We're also going to be investing in Wiley Post Park with ARPA funds there, as well as ARPA funds that were, of course, for Dewey Park as well, but also for the South May Avenue Airport Trail, and also for Cameron Park, putting lights on the 5 new soccer fields that are there. Other things that you'll see improving in FY25 will be the Lone Oak Park Master Plan will be coming through, and we'll start working on that with the public for improvements there. Swisher Park will be coming up for improvements and a lot of community meetings that'll happen there. I know Councilwoman Peck is very excited about that. And then also Regatta Park, there's some improvements we're making just as we're getting the trailhead finished at River Sport facility. And then I promise you, Councilman Carter, those solar lights are coming at Hefner Park. We wanted to present this video, just kind of a recap of FY24. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate it, and I'll entertain any questions you have.
Thank you, Melinda. We've got quite the stack of folks signed up to speak on your as a part of this. So I want to kind of look to council. You'd like to hear from the citizens first before your comments, or?
I have hopefully a quick question, but it's just about the transfer to the River Trust.
Yes.
It's sort of a separate item.
Yes.
I'm curious what that is specifically for, because that's kind of a broad description. I'm curious kind of what is that in response to, or is there a certain project that that's supposed to be allocated to?
Yes, thank you for that question, and I'm happy to explain that out. And it's it looks very odd on paper, but what it actually is a consolidation of different funds from different accounts. It was kind of becoming a accounting nightmare to keep track of which bucket of funds things were being pulled from. And so we decided this year to pull all those funds from 3 different accounts into the Parks Department's operating budget. So to kind of capitalize, we have the management fee that we provide to Riversport Foundation for the, of course, the operations management of the Riversport facility itself. And that's about $4.2 million that we do for that. And then we also had other funds in non-departmental that were, so part of that management fee was half was in the operating budget for general fund, half was in non-departmental. So we've pulled those into operating fund. Another piece was through non-departmental for capital improvements, and another funds were in capital repairs also. They were kind of in 4 different buckets. And so again, kind of created this confusion when we were talking either with the finance group or with us and say, okay, which fund group do we need to pull that from to pay this? And so we've consolidated them together. So that's why it looks like a very large increase, when in fact, those funds have already been there. We're just pulling them into the Parks Department operating budget. Does that kind of help answer the question?
Yeah, because in particular, seeing that public-private partnership piece is increasing from last year's adopted budget, almost $10 million being proposed. That
$4 million, yeah, $4 million increase just for
between
public-private
this year and
partnership.
this next year. And I think it kind of goes back to, I think, my frustration about the privatization of the operation of many of our facilities is that we are funding, and I don't like the word subsidy because I think it's so charged, and maybe it's helpful to use it broadly because maybe it takes some of the, but I mean, it's frustrating to see that private entities that run some of our public facilities, and the ones I can speak to in my ward, like Myriad and Scissortail, I get complaints from residents about certain things not being available or bathrooms not being open, complaints about how the staffing is working, and there's nothing really we can do about that as a public entity, even though we are subsidizing their operating budget, and sometimes in cases through this management fee model. And so I guess it's like, so I was particularly curious about that with River Trust. It sounds though like we're not necessarily increasing the amount that we are giving to Riversport for that management fee. It's just, it's all coming under one budget versus all these separate budgets.
There is a slight increase to the management fee, but it is all according to the study that we had done about the 7-year, how are we gonna get them sustainable and on a better footing. That's all part of that normalization of Riversport Foundation to get them on a better foot. So yeah, that's we knew that when that number, when you looked at it, would be $4 million higher. You'd be like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? And that was because of the consolidation of all those 4 different accounts into the general fund budget.
Okay, and then similarly with is the transfer for Myriad and Scissortail and First Americans, is that part of some like operating agreement that we have, or is it they're coming and requesting more from our general fund to operate?
Yeah, it's in line with the operating agreements that we have with each one of them. So we have with Myriad Gardens Foundation, Riversport Foundation, Scissortail Foundation, and then the I think it's First Americans Museum Foundation.
Yes.
Okay, because my understanding was particularly for Myriad and Scissortail that we were actually wanting to be decreasing the amount that the city is funding comparatively to their budget. I think it was supposed to go from like 50 to 40 to 30%.
Right,
So,
the percentages of the budget, yes, and that's still the goal, is to try to,
Okay.
and that's part of the working with the foundations. Riversport's been a bit of a challenge, but that's part of working with the foundations. A lot of those foundations can raise funds to help with capital improvements and other things at those facilities that are difficult to do within the city, you know, raising those separate funds, and that's where the foundations provide some additional benefit. But it does, I mean, you're right, it's an operating agreement, it does have costs to it, and we try to manage those costs as they're going up and make sure the facilities are managed properly, but it's part of operating agreements.
thank you. That's all I got.
I'll just say a couple things before the residents speak. I think this speaks to the difficulty and for our residents, frustration of seeing these things on paper without having conversation. And us subsidizing, the word subsidizing, as we heard before, costs to say, oh, but we're still there, when technically we have seen the impacts of we're actually not, in the way that our community expects us to be and expects us to maintain and expects us to operate facilities that have been built with public dollars, now to be privatized by other organizations. And, you know, hearing from this part of our community and understanding now with us saying, yes, it's still our center being managed by someone else, our community will no longer have access to a public facility that is truly operated by the city of Oklahoma City. The nearest facility would be either Midwest City YMCA. They could go possibly to Jones or Luther or Choctaw, or you are going miles away to the Willa D. Johnson Recreation Center. And we just heard from our public transportation that we do not have any fixed routes that would get our community and or our kids in impactful time and effective time to and from these facilities, especially in time for summer. So I think it's important and key that our community is able to be a part of these conversations. And to the residents that I've spoken with, this is all new to them, and they'll express their thoughts personally because I don't live there in that particular part of our city, but they do. And they know the impacts of what the loss of what we are asking as far as this budget reduction will also do. And I also want to make mention, as we look at Schilling Park, it sounds very, very great for the repurposing, but again, here we are with these facilities. So the question for me will be, and I'm sure you're gonna hear it some more, is if we are closing this facility as a city in order for us to subsidize and privatize it for another entity, how are we going to ensure that we replace a public facility within this part of our community? It is needed, and our city has to do something to ensure that this part of our community has something as well. We passed MAPS 4 because a lot of the residents said, we want a pavilion to add to our center. Here we are today, minusing the center. And this is a large blow to our community and the history of this part of this community and the facility of who it's named after and why it is in this part of our city in the first place. So I hope everyone here takes some well thought into the words that we're going to hear from our residents. And I know I did receive some correspondence from a young person, and I'll save my comments for that at the end.
Okay, before we go to the residents, now I'm confused, so I'm going to ask a couple of questions for clarity. On Menace Park and Schilling Park, can you draw some comparisons to what we're doing with their management going to Community Action and to PAL? Can you draw a comparison between that and how we have different organizations managing like our senior wellness centers or some of the other public facilities. Help me understand the differences between what we do over there, which we love, and what we're talking about here, which it doesn't sound like we love. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yes, I
Okay.
can understand. So, gather my thought for a moment.
Sure.
I don't think there's a, the difference is probably, it could probably be just, other than scale, other than for a facility size, you have, MAPS facilities are larger, Myriad Scissor-Tail, larger parks, more intense cultivation, if you would. However, they're still providing those public programs, so they're very parallel in that respect. And really analyzing and talking with our community and understanding some of those really high-level needs. And as you all know, as you all know, I don't have to teach you anything about this, but our city's budget is an anomaly in our state across our whole union. We're the only state that does not receive property taxes to support municipal government operations. So our budget does not grow. It tends to flatten and plateau. So even though we want to do these great new initiatives, those are all fabulous and fantastic, and we all want those, we have to become very strategic and very intentional in making sure we preserve as much public infrastructure as we can, as well as looking for those partner organizations to help us support that public infrastructure. We can't do it alone with just operating dollars for the general fund. It's just not possible. So as part of our task of being stewards of the public dollar, we are tasked with identifying where can we have partners that really meet a very huge need in the community, and then identifying where maybe the smaller amount or the smaller number of need can be shifted to another location. We also know in Oklahoma City we have to help support our partners. We have a lot of nonprofit organizations, and we have a lot of duplication of services. So our big four partners are Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, Community Action Agency, Police Athletic League. Those four, and Urban League. Those 5 groups, we pretty much all kind of do a lot of the very same stuff. However, we just do them in different levels and different quantities, if you would. And so the more that we can target those partner groups to come in and say, if you can help us here, we can move and help over here. So Parks and Recreation, as modernizing as we are doing, I think I've given all of you that briefing paper, as we're modernizing our department and really focusing in on how our partnerships can become even stronger with our entire organization, we have to be very strategic and very responsible with how we're spending our operating funds. And so that's where we were with Boys and Girls Club, ended up coming into the MAPS 4 youth centers, YMCA, community living, community action groups are coming in and taking care of our MAPS 4 senior facilities. Those are just costs that we just can't bear among the operations budgets. So those partnerships are strategic, they're timely. It's kind of like with the 2 facilities, knowing that these facilities were kind of in areas that the public had a greater need than just what the Parks Department could offer at the time. So we said, okay, those are areas that if we cannot fulfill them ourselves with the operating fund, where can we partner with organizations that can help fulfill a greater need than what we can do ourselves?
And Melinda, can you talk a little bit about the operator agreements that we'll have? Because I think there's reasonable question as to if a private entity has this or a nonprofit has this, will we still make it available to the public?
Yes.
Will the public still have access? And I think that was the intent going into this, but I want you to explain that and how that would work within an operator agreement.
Yes, we've been having long, intentional discussions about that with Community Action Agency and Police Athletic League, knowing that the participations mostly at Menace Lakeview were either from the gym access for like practice basketball, and then also for community like rentals. People would come in and rent the gym to have access to that. To either have a family reunion, a birthday party, or whatever have you. That's still going to be honored. That is specifically written in the agreement with the operators that we will still be able to have the opportunity that Community Action Agency will rent the facility to the public as they are doing, as the Parks Department is doing now, renting it to the public. That will still be available to them. Same with Police Athletic League, that gym facility, they also understand that they will be able to rent the gym to the public for any outside use. Now, caveat, probably 95% of the use of that gym was with Police Athletic League already, so that doesn't change a whole lot in access. But they both have agreed, and it will be written in their operating agreements, that they will provide access to those facilities, just like the Parks Department had done with the current user groups that are there now.
And I'll say I would speak, and I hope I'm not speaking for everyone. They can speak for themselves because they will. The part that is frustrating about this is we're here instead of the community They didn't have to show up had they known all of these things. This was not expressed to them. This was not expressed in a way for them to understand it's not closing, because there were folks that work at this particular center that I talked to who said, we were told that this will close on June 30th. Then we were updated and said it will close May 31st. So a community is confused. Confused, intentionally confused about what is happening. And that is on us as a city to express what is going on, to help our residents to understand what this positive transition could look like, if that's what it is. Right now, it's not. And that's the unfortunate part of why we are here, why this part of our community is here, and helping us to now backtrack to help them to understand this is where we are. That's not how we should be doing business with our residents who rely on these facilities. It's just not, it's not something that we should brag about and or look at in the future of saying this is a positive outlook when you have people showing up to say, well, no, we don't know what you're doing. And I can't even speak to this because I got an email about it and saying, oh, well, we just want to keep this. We're trying to figure out what this is going to look like. I can't even tell the residents because I don't know. So I can't answer questions for my residents, and the people who work at this facility can't answer questions for the people that they see in their neighborhood every single day. And now we are here. It should not be us being here for this part of this conversation.
And so with this, the operating agreement that requires this allowance for public use, is that standard when because that's not been my understanding in other, I have McKinley Park, and I've heard from community members that they've wanted to hold things there, but the entity that operates what I believe is Community Action Agency doesn't have the capacity to stay open past a certain point to staff it, and so they aren't able to provide that, whereas maybe if it was publicly run, maybe there's a different conversation. Or again, it comes back to public accountability, that comes back to the city versus a private entity that really is only generally accountable to its board and funders. So is that something that we could build in to be a standard? Because I think that it still wouldn't make me feel great, but I think it would make me feel better, because that is a complaint. And even with the other facility you mentioned that Police Athletic League runs, I got a call from a former senator who has been a Southside resident for decades and has had a meeting at the Lions facility and was not under the impression that it was run by a private entity. He reached out to my office because there had been flooding damage, and like I said, he's a pretty well-informed person and didn't know who he was supposed to reach out to say there's damage at this building that needs to be addressed. And even to your point, Councilwoman, of the staff there, and this was the staff of the private entity, said, oh, you need to call the city. So even there's confusion, I think, and it becomes very confusing about who's responsible for what, how do we communicate with residents about what's possible and still provide access to these buildings when they're privately operated by organizations that also have budget constraints, that also, are possibly even more volatile in sort of the winds of what philanthropy can address. So I'm kind of curious to hear if that's something that's standard that we can provide, or if it really, because I assume it's a negotiation with the entity about what they feel like they can do. But I think that, again, comes back to us, that these are public facilities and publicly funded. We need to be more responsive to the public needs that I understand there are needs for things like Head Start, and it's a great program, but also there's, within these neighborhoods where these facilities are, there are other things that the community wants and needs out of these facilities.
To kind of answer your questions on the agreement, so the McKinley Head Start facility is a very old agreement. It's one of those where over the last literally 10 years through the department, we've been going back through all of our agreements, and there is not a standardization that was ever practiced historically. Now we're standardizing everything. And so whether it's standardization language within public access to funding to reporting, just like for LFR numbers that we report to you annually, that we are standardizing our agreements to be much more consistent and much more transparent in how those facilities can be operated and also be accessible to the public. So we are changing those agreements now. Much like what we're going to create with Community Action Agency's agreement with Menace, that gave us the opportunity in the window to modify their entire agreement, which includes the Diggs facility, McKinley facility, and then also Menace now. So that will help us streamline that, and it will spell it out very specifically, much like it does with Civic Center, Music Hall, Scissortail Park, Myriad Gardens. There's different ways where we've had to spell out, this is the expectations, and that kind of thing. That help answer your question a little bit.
Linda, real quickly, I just wanted to say thank you so much for continuing to work with the Police Athletic League.
Thank you.
The services they provide for our inner city youth are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Melinda. We'll
Thank
start next. So I've got quite the stack of folks to come up to speak. You'll each, when I call your name, you'll come to the podium. You'll state your name and your address. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. The city clerk will advise you when there's 30 seconds left. If, after we get a few people in, if someone has already said the thoughts, have shared the thoughts that you have, you're certainly not obligated to come up and say the same thing again, but you're also more than welcome to do so also and express your own thoughts and share your feelings. So we'll get started. First up, I have Delbert Lasky.
My name is Delbert Lasky. I live at 109 Brook Lane, Midwest City. The whole purpose of the city parks and recreation is to promote health, recreation, and wellness. And what I'm hearing is that is going to be taken from our community and put somewhere else and promoted. So we're not replacing. I work for a health care facility that just recently opened on the northeast side of Oklahoma City. And since we opened December 7th, we have over 2,100 members there. So I get to see on a daily basis the vitality of health, recreation, and wellness. And what I'm hearing is that you're going to be taking that from our community and repurposing our building. Okay, when you do that, I want you to also consider this. You're not only repurposing a building, you're repurposing a culture, a community, a people. You can't do that. You can't repurpose people, cultures, and communities. And an example, that's what will be happening here. I played in the sand pits watching this facility being built from ground up as a kid. And it has provided the access for family reunions. It's also provided pre-K graduations and proms. We don't need a Head Start program, and I think CAP is the wrong partner to even partner with, because they're not going to be able to provide the health, recreation, and wellness that this community needs. So when you decide on this, I hope you really consider the culture that's there, the people that are there, and the community when you decide on this vote. And also the health, recreation, and wellness, and mental health that can't, instead of repurposing, I think we need to redirect the funds, the interest in a community before going in and saying, hey, we're going to close this in a couple of weeks.
30
and
seconds
that
remaining.
has this community in an uproar. And I've been a part of this community ever since I was a kid. And I don't want to see the center to close, because I think we can actually repurpose it, but in the direction of health, communication, health, community, and recreation. And instead of taking dollars from our community and repurposing somewhere else, we can refocus and put more money into that and make it into something. So I'm here to say no to the closure of Menace Lakeview Park. And I'd like like this gentleman, Mr. James Ward, is there a way that we can put this back on the table, reconsider it, and look at it again, and have input from the community saying, where do we go from here with this? Thank you very much.
Next up will be Ms. Florence Alexander.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Florence Alexander. I live at 12724 Northeast 38th Street. I sent a letter. We the people of 4 East Side, known as Dungy, Parker Heights, oppose the removing of our facility, Menace Lakeview. I supported tax dollars, have supported Oklahoma City ever since we became a part of Oklahoma City. Menace Lakeview is a very important part of our city. We pay taxes on our homes, land, churches, automobiles, mobile homes, new homes, and new, sufficient, improved community homes that's being built at anywhere from $250,000 to $275,000. This is also increasing our tax base in that area because we do have land. We pay taxes on our hair, nails, utility, jewelry, corner store fronts, medication. Bottom line, we abide by the tax laws of Oklahoma City. We're a peaceful people. We just take care of our own. We still have some of the old ways. And basically, we're basically all related. Now you have set the stage so shamelessly to take our community center, Menace Lakeview, and propose to lease it to Community Action, who does nothing for this community. We don't need their half-day daycare, Head Start. Pardon me, we don't need their half-day Head Start. Head Start was in our community, and they moved out, and we found another option. We were able to take our babies to the Oklahoma City Public Schools, where they would take care of them all day, even if they're not potty trained. CAP has no resources. If they did, they would have had resources in our community already. They don't have any programs that counteract drugs. They don't have any
30 seconds
money
remaining.
To remodel our homes, fresh foods, utility assistance, fail-refunded grants. They don't even have money for the murders that we've had for our young people, to have a program for individuals that's suffering from the loss of their loved ones. Where the Parks and Recreation have many programs. We have our birthday parties there. We have our summer lunch program for our children, and they were very instrumental during the time of COVID. We wouldn't have had anywhere for our children to come and pick up their food if it wasn't for Oklahoma City Park and Recreation. We have our Christmas gathering. We have our Easter gatherings.
Ms. Alexander,
And
you're
food
at time if you
distribution.
would have some closing comments, ma'am.
All right, I just wanted to close and say, I'm the 4th generation in this community. My name is Florence Alexander, and I hold a master's degree and a master's in education. And I'm a community senior.
Thank you,
Let's
Ms.
be
Alexander.
transparent.
Next up, Ernest Ware.
Good morning. My name is Ernest Ware. My address is 8321 Northeast 33rd. And let me start by saying I support the growth and development of Oklahoma City. However, but not at the expense of my community, of the minority community. Looking at this proposal, it's racist on its face, and I don't have to define it. You can do it by looking at this program. Now, I'm not just another pretty face. I'd like to have some more information. Why are we having a cut in the first place? Are we operating under a deficit? Are we not projecting that we're going to have more revenue next time? Or what is the purpose for this? The presentation was nice, but it was more business as usual. You use, I didn't see Menace Lakeview on there, but we have some of the same services that you showed on there. You put our kids' face on there to get money, but we don't get the services. Right now, we get trash and water, but we pay taxes like everybody else. We come to Oklahoma City. Most of us live in Oklahoma City, but we get nothing for it. Long as you can get money and use our faces, our demographics to get programs, that's all we're gonna get. We're not gonna get anything for any of this. We're tired of being, things being done to us and not for us. And that's what we've had in the past. Look like it's never gonna stop. Shame on you. If you approve this, well, you may not have any shame. We have kids just like the ones you showed on this program. Need all the services that you had on this program, but you don't care. This was the easy way to do it. Let's take out the Latinos and the black community so that we'll have more things for the white community. That's what it looks like. Yeah, I'm playing the race card because that's all you dealt me. That's all we have left.
30 seconds remaining.
You can take that 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Ware. Reverend DeCarla Steele. Reverend Steele.
Good morning, or afternoon, whatever time it is. Morning still. I'm Reverend DeCarla Steele. I live at 14401 Sedona Drive in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Councilman Carter, I am in your district. However, I serve at a church, Israel Chapel CME Church, which is in Councilwoman Nikki Nice's district in the great city of Spencer, Oklahoma, which is approximately a mile from Menace Recreation Center. I serve a community that I am a part of that depends on this recreational community. And I recently just left Charleston, South Carolina for a funeral of my aunt, and they took me all through Charleston, and I saw the wonderful changes that were going on, all of the beautiful things, but I was so sad because they took much of what was already there. They're improving upon the history, yes, but there are costs to improvement. And we don't always count the cost when you're dealing with humans. In the case of Menace Lakeview Recreational Center, thank you, Councilwoman Nikki Nice, for stating that there was no conversation with the residents of this community. The residents would love to have a conversation. While we are for improvements, we are all for betterment, but what I've seen over my time in living here in Oklahoma City, and I bragged to my family in Charleston, they haven't been here since 2005 when they came for my wedding. And I told them, you ought to see Oklahoma City. It is an amazing place. It's not a one-horse town with one light and dirt roads, as most people think. And the one question I get, are there black people there? Yes, we are here. However, when I come back and I have to take off work to come to a city council meeting, because the people that I love and serve didn't get the opportunity to speak for themselves. Decisions are made for our community with our input. That's not fair. We deserve the right to say what we need. I've seen in Oklahoma City say what we need.
30 seconds
and then move us out and then make it better for others. Menace Recreational Center should have had money poured into it, should have had the things that the children and the residents needed. I appreciate Community Action Agency, but that may not be the answer. So I invite you to continue to have this conversation with us and with the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Steele. Next up, Tim Campbell. Tim Campbell. All right, thank you, Mr. Campbell. Next up, Sincere Littleton. Sorry.
Hello, my name is Sincere Littleton. I live at 8412 Riverview Drive, Smith, Oklahoma. And I would honestly like to start off by saying I've never been to Menace Lakeview. But for one of our senior activities, we get to go to Menace Lakeview for a cookout. And that is beautiful. Think about all the generation that's lived here their whole life. Generations under me that won't even get to experience Menace Lakeview in my life that I have because it'll be private. That's not beautiful. That is something destroying and heartbreaking, honestly. And I would like to say, in OKC Parks, in the pictures that they gave, one of my friends was in the picture, which bewildered me, with his young daughter. And I thought to myself, what if him and his daughter wanted to move to Spencer, Oklahoma, and never got to experience Menace Lakeview? That would be heartbreaking. What if she never has somewhere to play with her friends growing up? That would be destroying. And on these petitions, I have hundreds of names, people who've gotten to experience Menace Lakeview. And if that was taken away from them, that would honestly make me cry, because that is just a place of beauty that people around us would not get to experience. And that would just hurt my soul. And we honestly have more names that would like to be petitioned, but they just weren't able to make it. And that sucks. But I just want my community to be able to experience something that's beautiful and wonderful. I hate that my community would not be able to continue to experience it. Think about your homes. Your homes are private, not public. You wouldn't want someone to just come into your private home. So why not keep our Menace Lakeview Recreation Center public for the community to experience it? It's something beautiful. I've had friends have balloon releases, family gatherings at Menace Lakeview. So just because I haven't gotten to experience it how my generation has, doesn't mean it shouldn't be experienced for younger generation and also generations above me that's also made it a beautiful place,
30
how it
seconds
is now.
remaining.
And thank you. That's honestly all I have to say. But I appreciate you for your time, and I hope you consider more thought on how Menace Lakeview is wonderful to the community. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Littleton. Next up, Troy Beasley. Troy Beasley.
Good morning. My name is Troy Beasley. I live at 3400 North Anderson Road. It's actually a Choctaw postal code, but I can see Menace Lakeview from my back porch. Real briefly, I don't know, I'm pretty sure everyone can't see the details of this map, but this is Oklahoma City Parks and Reps map, park locations plotted out by map. The far most eastern location on this map is Menace Lakeview. For those city council members that don't have a visual, You service 170 parks, right? Pretty sure all of you can see this. Menace Lakeview is the furthest east. And if you look at this land clearing area where there's no parks and services, you're going to take one of the only ones in that area and funnel and from what I'm hearing, it's not a closure, it's a repurposing. I would like to see that repurposing defined with the changes from current to proposed. That would provide clarity for everybody. Write down what that word repurposing means. Write down what the changes will be for availability and access through staffing, available times or whatever. Document it so people can look at it and say, oh, that might not be a big change at all. There may be some things going on, so it sounds like there's some confusion between closure and repurposing. Once that's cleared up, you can move on. Secondly, had another map, fastest growing economic areas in the Oklahoma City metropolitan area. The dark blue green square right there is where Menace Lakeview is. It's considered one of the highest, fastest growing areas in the Oklahoma City metro. So if the area is growing, why would you reduce services? If economic development is increasing, why would you have a deficiency in funding if I'm understanding maybe some of the tax revenue, yada, yada, I get that part. But it doesn't make logical sense when you have an area that, according to what we brag about in Oklahoma City, is thriving and booming, one of your fastest growing, but you're gonna reduce community services for that area. And my biggest issue is, if for anybody in here that has a child that plays organized football,
30 seconds remaining.
Woodson Park is the most popular park for football activity in Oklahoma City, whether you know it or not. If you, I don't know how you all, matriculate in your personal lives, but Woodson Park is every year, for at least a decade that I can verify, having been there physically, has been a booming metropolis for activity, concessions, aquatics, and whatnot. You would take from an already struggling and depleted community to enhance an already existing and thriving community. It doesn't make rational, logical sense, regardless of what the emotions are. It doesn't make fiduciary sense
Mr.
as
Beasley,
responsible
you're
managers
over
of our
time,
money.
sir, if you could
Taking from the
wrap up.
have-nots to improve the haves in an area that, by your own map, shows that you don't have services in that region.
Thank you,
So it
Mr.
just doesn't
Beasley.
make logical sense for me, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Princess Murphy. Next up is Princess Murphy.
Good morning. First, I would like to say I thank you for the opportunity. I didn't know I was going to get the opportunity to do this. But since I'm here, I want to share some of the things that we have been able to do in that community. Menace Lake, it's a Dungy, we know it as Dungy. And Dungy, each year, come together. We sing, we do musical things, and we have our reunions. And even though sometimes we get to come together and we keep our community. And first, I want to go back to say, my name is Princess Murphy. I live in Norman, Oklahoma, 6600 84th Avenue, 84th Avenue, Norman, Oklahoma. My parents, I grew up at 7300 Northwest Minister, Spencer, Oklahoma. Never stop. I go out to Spencer every day. My dad left. He passed away a year ago. And when he left the family history to us. And we understood that this is for our generation and generation to go on. When I look out at Menace Lake, I think of the life skills that was taught. I think of our swimming and all those things that we were able to do and learn how to do being at Menace Lake. At the same token, I think of Dungey coming together, and each year we come together and have our reunion. And even those that went on to Spencer High School, Star Spencer High School, we still look at ourselves as Dungey. And so with us looking at ourselves for Dungey and our kids, even though my kids lived in Norman, they still know the Spencer kids. That's our coming together, being a part of one another. And I just don't see where we would pull something from one community and put it into another community. Like I said, it's something that already is existing.
30 seconds
Yes, we
remaining.
need more. Yes, we need a lot more out there. But we still have a lot. And I was so proud of the ones that was here today. All I could do was give them my heart and my pound, because this is our community. And I love our community, and I want to see it continue to grow from generations to generations. That's our heart. And we don't want to see it go. We want to see, for them, if they want to get more, let them get more. But don't take it from us, but also give us more as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Next up, Treshae Booker. Am I saying that right?
Hello, my name's Treshae Booker. I live at 8818 Northeast 13th Street, which is Midwest City, but I actually grew up in this community. Generations of my family actually came out of this community. I did hear where there was a Head Start supposed to be repurposed for Menace Lakeview, and it's really confusing because there was actually a Head Start out there years ago before that I actually myself had the opportunity of graduating from, called City County Head Start, and it was ran by Community Action. It's just a little baffling that we're going to partner with an entity that really doesn't have the staff capacity to even keep the current running Community Action Head Start to open. I know this firsthand because I had a child about 2 years ago go to a Community Action Head Start where a lot of days they were closed down due to not having the staff to keep them open. I, just like everyone else, would love to see the community grow, but as far as a Head Start, I don't feel like that would be a jump to progressing this actual community, being that we've already had that. All the schools that we had out in that area have been shut down. We actually had a fully functioning operating pool at Menace Lakeview that was filled and closed down due to budgeting purposes, which were then discovered to be run on well water. So, you know, we're slowly taking things away from the community that gives the children an opportunity to, you know, grow and meld their minds into who they are to become as adults. I remember at one point in time growing up at Menace Lakeview, going up there for the computer classes that were offered to teach you how to type, to teach you how to locate emails and, you know, things of that nature, which were taken away slowly over time. A lot of these classes that were offered as far as arts and everything in Menace Lakeview no longer exist. As far as repurposing, I don't feel it would be a sound decision to make at all, being that my children now can't even experience Menace Lakeview in the same light or perspective that I got to experience it. Some of the things that we like to see is maybe some of that funding to repaint the playground equipment, you know, replacing some of the benches that are broken down that were built around the trees, you know, just updating the facility. I don't understand how we decide to repurpose a facility that is literally falling apart. And that's my final words. I thank you all for your time of consideration, and you all have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Booker. Last up, Michael Washington.
Greetings, this illustrious horseshoe guest. I said guest because I own this place through my taxes, and we all know that, don't we? You are a representative of the people who have spoken today. Let's allow their voices to be heard soundly as a roaring lion in the jungle. Now then, I happen to be one of those lions stepping in this jungle right today to speak on their behalf, and I'm not going to talk nice because everybody knows there just wouldn't be Michael now, would it? Now then. Oh, where's the transparency at, ma'am? You even had a city councilwoman say you didn't even tell me what's going on. I don't have to. Why? Because y'all not but a spotted wrinkle in my government, what we own, we the people that own that don't look like you. Now then, you're the policyholder decision makers. You do as I say or else. Isn't that something? Now then, you heard the gentleman speak, and I quickly latched on to his words. There are more than 2,100 members already in this facility, and you want to know why it hasn't been given an uplift and an upgrade? Because this point here was already pre-planned years ago for it to be talked about in the discussion that we talk about now. Isn't that right? That's why it's going down and under. But at the same time, the people who live in this area, they feel great with what they have. You heard about the family reunions. You heard about the graduations. You heard about the musicals and things they have and the wellness and things that are going on. Let's let their voices be heard. Why disrupt something where the people already feel good about? Even though they have just a little bit of something, there's something in not having it at all. Now you want to take from us. You don't want to be transparent. And y'all ready for this one? I just hate my time just flies because Michael loved talking. But let me tell y'all one thing. Everybody knows who don't have an understanding. When something becomes privatized, you don't have to follow the same standards that city and state government does. Watch it, Michael. So I can raise the rent. I can say I'm going to close it today. Who will you go say anything about it? I'm private. Now go sue me. That's right. I ain't going to be nice about it. We're going to talk freely. Not at all. Now,
30 seconds remaining.
Well, 30 seconds should come fast. When you're having fun, but let me say this in closing. We know it's all about gentrification, ladies and gentlemen. We want to stress the powers that be from down here to back on the east side that they used to own in the 60s. Come on, let's keep it real or trill or nothing at all. Y'all have a wonderful day while I speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. And that concludes the residents to speak on the parks item. So we will move to item C, Development Services Department. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no,
I should have asked before
no.
moving on. My apologies.
May we receive some clarification? I just did a Google search of the Recreation Center, and when I click at the bottom here for a list of the current classes and programs, I see aquatics, I see athletics, I see recreation programs, but then I just heard that the pool. Okay, just want to make sure. So, okay, just want to make sure. So I am confused. Maybe that's because I'm not in the community. That's not Ward 2, so forgive my ignorance. Sometimes I don't know everything. But I just would like to know which services they actually do have there, particularly as it relates to what I'm looking at right now after clicking that link, because it sounds like this link might not be as up to date as current reality for the area. So I'll just start there. What are some of the services we already provide there?
Okay, so at Menace Lakeview Park, there's the spray ground, which yes, the many community pools were closed long before my time with the city. I mean, it has been 20-some years ago. I think a lot of our community, the small, what we call bathtub or community pools, those real small ones, a lot of those were shut down. I think it was maybe even during the 80s, late 80s, early 90s due to budget issues. In place of that pool became a spray ground, and that spray ground is still there. MAPS 4 as well as Geo Bond 17 will improve the park properties there. Improve spray ground, pavilion, playground, and other features, walking path, in that park through that program. That was coming up here in another, I'm not sure what year exactly it'll come up because MAPS is still sorting that out right now. Inside the facility, not Head Start, Community Action Agency is there presently now, occupying a couple of rooms where they can connect the community with services and other things that Community Action Agency already provides. The rest of the building, the Parks Department occupies, providing some programs, but then also, again, the gymnasium. We do a lot of rentals in that facility, in that gymnasium, through either family reunions, graduation ceremonies, proms, that kind of thing. Those are all happening in that gymnasium now, as it is. And of course, during that gymnasium rentals, they have access to the restroom facilities and all that kind of thing. In the past, the community center has been very active with different types of programs, but over time that has waned. A lot of it, we've reached out to the community a couple years ago, maybe it's even 5 years ago now, requesting what programs are you interested in participating in so we can help provide those programs. We haven't had as much participation as we hoped, honestly. So there's been different models that we've tried and practiced in that facility, and none of them have been successful. And that's when this new opportunity with Community Action Agency to help activate that facility more through a Head Start program, but then again, to be very clear and very direct about it, they are going to keep the facility available for rentals. So 90% of the activities, I say 90% is probably a little generous, 85% of the activities in that facility are rental programs that are coming in to either use the gymnasium for basketball practice or games, or people renting it for private family events or whatever have you, using that gym for that purpose too.
So thank you for that clarification. So it sounds, with Community Action Agency thusly expanding its operation footprint there, am I hearing correctly that Head Start would be, is that?
Added to the facility, but not all encompassing of the facility.
So there would be rental opportunities for like basketball and stuff, but what sort of, I guess I'm trying to drill down into some details there. Like what sort of services that's my question. Like what services will Community Action Agency be providing the community from this facility?
I know that Community Action Agency is working a lot with their executive board and with their staff on creating those programs now. And I know that as the Parks Department is creating their operation agreement, we've asked them to continue to make sure the facility is available for private rentals, which is pretty much encompasses the gym. It's the biggest room in the building is the gym, to do that. And then, again, their Head Start program will be active there as well.
So I guess my request, well, first, again, thanks for that clarification. Let me also just say to everyone who showed up today, thank you. It is encouraging to see this level of involvement in your community, even folk who've moved out but grew up in. That is super inspiring and encouraging. So yeah, I mean, it's for yourselves. Particularly for a council person who doesn't live, work, in that area, to hear you all describe your story back to me, to us, is just very useful. It's very useful information. I hope Parks finds it useful as too. So when you, Director, mentioned previous outreach efforts not bearing the fruit you would have liked, and trust me, I've definitely hosted events where people don't turn out, and you're like, dang it. But it sounds like now you have a good group here that would probably be willing partners to talk about what sort of programming is their neighborhoods need. Mm-hmm. And I guess that would be my ask with this budget. Like, again, I don't know, man. It goes back to what I was saying earlier about the public transportation thing. All the time it feels like the cake is baked when these presentations occur and that amendments can't happen, which is just wild to me. So it's just not my background as a teacher. When us faculty come to the table together and we talk about what's working and what's not working, we amend, right? We the cake isn't baked. Things can go back in the oven. And I worry that the Community Action Agency cake is baked. But what I'm hearing from residents is that they have very specific needs in their community that we as a city government through this public facility could partner with, if not community action agency, someone who could be doing some of these, meeting the needs, like meeting people where they are. And I would hope, because I'm gonna tell you right now, it's gonna be very difficult for me to support this budget in a couple weeks when we have almost half of this chamber full of people, more than I think I've ever seen at a public budget meeting in my 5 years here. I'm serious, y'all, I don't think I've ever seen something like this since the police conversations. And I just don't feel comfortable. You already know how I feel about them bikes. But now this, it's just uncomfortable, man, for me to support a budget when the budget for parks, at least, and again, I don't think through necessarily any fault of your own, I just think that there's this opportunity to sit with community members, ask them what they need, and then find community member partnership opportunities to meet those needs. Is there an opportunity before this comes to a final vote in the next few weeks for, our staff to sit with community and maybe rethink what we're gonna do?
And can I say,
amend it.
And can I say this again, as we go through our budget, and one of the things that our public should realize, and this is something that was new to me after really looking at our budget to understand how this starts baking in November. Between July to November, these things start baking. And in my opinion, these are when those conversations with residents should occur. If there is an opportunity to repurpose, take funds away, close, whatever the language is going to be, people need to know what that is. And the unfortunate part is hearing from residents last evening, the fact that residents are saying and have said, the Parks Department came out here and asked us what we needed in this center last year as far as the floor, what kind of floor do we want in the gym, all of these things. And now here we are saying we're gonna repurpose it. So which one are we doing is the confusion again, and clearly where we have to look at how we communicate better with our residents. It took a couple phone calls and we were able to get almost 100 people or more in a room. So it's not hard to do. It's not hard to do if we are intentional about how we want to communicate with our residents. And this was an important conversation that needed to be had. That's why these residents are here to speak and have spoken. And thank you to the ones that are giving moral support to the others, because you all had to travel very far to get downtown Oklahoma City, and you got to pay to park. So thank you for being here, because again, these things are important. And when we make these types of decisions, I hope we realize what we are doing to communities, because I wanted to make mention, I read it in what we heard earlier. It was the least amount of impact on residents as far as our department reductions. This is a major impact on our residents within this part of our community for this reduction of what we have. And you've already heard also, they've said the programming was already declining. So now it's to the point of where we have community action occupying a couple of rooms already. Why can't they just occupy another room for Head Start if that's what we're doing? And whereas the city can continue to manage. That is where the revenue comes from, yes, from the gym. People use the gym. That is the only type of recreation that's in this part of our community. So yeah, they're gonna use it. They have to use it because, you know, most of our churches aren't big enough. Most of our other facilities and places that are within this community, you can't do it. You have school facilities, they're still hanging on a string, half of them too. This is what we have poured money into, and it's a beautiful gym. When did we update the gym last?
2007 bond, so it would have been 2013?
Okay.
2014?
So it's still barely 10 years old as far as the gym is concerned. It still needs some repair, but again, this is what this part of our community has to operate with. And we owe this to this community to make sure that we're continuing to support them in this effort of having adequate access, not just a facility, but access to the facility as well. And hearing again how this is a life-changing place and the furthest in our Parks and Recreation management would be and will be a major blow to our city in far northeast Oklahoma City. But again, to you all, thank you. The work is not done.
Yeah, I would just say again, thank you all for being here, for showing up and sharing your comments and your input and your concerns, and we'll take this into consideration and look at what options we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have Rick Wickenkamp, Director of our Development Services Department, to provide the presentation on Development Services budget.
Good morning, Vice Mayor and City Council. I'm Rick Wickenkamp, Director of Development Services Department. And I'm pleased to present to you this morning the Development Services Department's proposed fiscal year 25 budget. It's located on page C33 of your proposed budget book if you want to check along there. I want to recognize my staff with me this morning. I have my Assistant Director, Christilla Miles, my Administrative Manager, Carol Reed, and my Management Specialist, Tony Mitchell, who's also running the presentation. These are the people that keep me on track and straight every day, keep me going. I also have my line of business managers here. Chad Davidson, Superintendent of Code Enforcement, John Gary, the Animal Welfare Superintendent, and Scott Weiss, who's the Development Center Manager. I really have to thank all of our employees who are really dedicated and hardworking. We provide direct services to the public and our customers, our residents, and all these lines of business. And staff really rise to the occasion to help those that need our support and our services. And also want to give a credit photo here to Brian Boone, who's the PIM coordinator in the city manager's office. This beautiful photo is an original of his, and he was kind enough to let us use it in our presentation. So very thankful about that. So the mission of the Development Services Department is to provide animal welfare, code enforcement, construction permitting and inspections, licensing and development application review services, to the development community and the general public so they can receive timely development decisions and live in a clean, safe, and stable city. So our budget change this year from last year is just up by just under 3% in our operating budget, which we're a general fund budget for the most part. So it's about a $600,000 increase from the prior year. If you look at our overall budget, including some of our non-operating funds, it's pretty much even, just down just a little over 1/4 of a percentage point. Our major budget changes, we really don't have programmatic things that we can cut, so really we look at staffing when we have to do a budget reduction. And so we're proposing that in the Development Center that we would delete a vacant unit operations leader. We currently have 3 of those, and we've functioned without that 3rd position in the past, so we think we'll be okay there. We're also proposing to delete a vacant business intelligence specialist, which is a position that's pretty new. We've had it a couple of years. We've never really been able to implement it the way that we envisioned it, and so it's been vacant for a while, so we don't think that will really impact our operations. And then we're proposing to delete a vacant code inspector provisional position in code enforcement. And code enforcement is very efficient in what they do. We've had a number of vacancies all year. And so as we get those staffed up, we think we'll be fine there operationally as well. Of course, we'll monitor our performance and our service levels, and if we see a problem, then we'll reach out to try to address those. So we have 4 lines of business in our department. We have administration with 4 employees. Animal welfare is 61 employees under John Gary, and then code enforcement, 40 employees under Chad Davidson, and then the development center is our largest division with 87 employees under the direction of Scott Weiss. And again, we just interact directly with people in everything that we do. So looking at the development center a little bit closer, we have our plan review, our permits and licensing, and then our construction inspections programs. We review a lot of plans, both new and remodels of commercial and residential. We issue a lot of permits and a lot of business licenses. And one of our focuses is really on our inspections, our construction inspections, and we do around 124,000 of those per year. And we've kind of struggled with that post-COVID, keeping our staff up to date. And our target is pretty high for that. We're at a 90% target, which we're committed to. So one of the things you'll notice in my department as we go through this budget is that we don't really adjust our targets up and down. We find a level of service that we think our customers deserve, and so we keep that in front of us, and we work towards, if we're not there, we work towards getting there. So this development process support is one of our priorities from our strategic business plan, and one of our key measures here is the percent of construction-related inspections completed within 1 day. And as I just mentioned, our target is 90%, and we've been on a little bit of a downward trend. This year in particular, our demand for inspections is up 14%. So, and it's really mostly impacted by the electrical inspections, which our demand this year has gone up 39%. So that's almost 40%. That's a big increase in 1 year. So what does that mean to our customer? We're not quite at target. And so I wanted to really pull this and look at where we're at over a 2-day period by trade groups. So this is our building, mechanical, plumbing, and electrical. So for those first 3 trade groups, the building, mechanical, and plumbing, they're getting their inspection within the 2-day period over 90% of the time. So it's 1 or 2 days, 90% of the time. And again, it's really the electrical that impacts this the most. So mostly through staffing issues, and also again the demand, and solar demand has also been up for solar permits. We were at 14 days out at one point this year. That's a long ways out. And so we did something very innovative for the city, is that we brought in a third-party vendor to do electrical inspections for the first time in the history of the city. Now, we were somewhat limited because the vendor would do video inspections, and we don't think video inspections work for everything, but they primarily did solar inspections, and so we've been running the last few weeks at 3 or 4 days out. So we're not at 1 day, but we're at 3 days, and that's a big, major increase from where we're at 14 days out. And that really speaks to the commitment of our staff and, again, focusing on the services that we provide. So the Development Center, some of the things we've been doing and looking forward to gain operational efficiencies is, again, we provide staffing for the Business Service Center on the first floor of 420. So we've tried to move a lot of services to online. People can do it electronically, but a lot of people just aren't comfortable with that. A lot of people want to talk to somebody. A lot of people have questions, and so we provide that service where people can come in and talk to staff. We have our permits and licensing available, and plan reviews always there, and we can bring down chief inspectors to talk about those kind of questions about the inspections piece. Or we'll meet with staff, we'll meet with individuals or groups. So we're proud that we can still provide that person-to-person contact. That's very important. We have a process now that's a Selectron relay phone canvassing that we've used very little so far, but this is a system that allows us to send phone messages out to types or groups of people. And so this is something we're getting used to doing because we think it could be very useful in an emergency situation where we need to contact a bunch of people, or we're going to change our processes and we need to give them a heads up. We've also implemented a QR code on our inspection stickers, along with automated emailing to the business after an inspection. What that QR code does is when the contractor comes back to the site, sees that we rejected it, they just hit that with their phone and they can see exactly what they need to do to get the inspection passed, as opposed to trying to decipher an inspector's handwriting, and I can't always decipher my own. So that's an important improvement. I mentioned the third-party inspections. That was very helpful to us and to the people that we provide services. And then I want to just talk a minute here about the development process review. So we get complaints from time to time, and you may as well, about our process and how we interact. And coming from the city, we're kind of fragmented. All the development, all the plans come through the development center, but they may need to go to planning to deal with zoning issues. They may need a fire inspection. They may need an inspection from Public Works, from utilities, and if they're at the airports, at the airports. So that's 5 departments. So somebody comes to us with their plans, and we can't answer the questions for airports or Public Works. So we're kind of piecemealing it back. But yet, from a customer viewpoint, they're contacting the city. And we don't think that's as good as that can be. So what we really wanted to do is try to look at our process from the customer's point of view. And so that end, the Office of Innovation stepped in, and they did an RFP for proposals for a consultant to come in and look at our total development process from the beginning to the end, to show us how we might improve that from the customer's point of view so that they may experience a more streamlined and easier process to navigate. And part of that proposal is that they get feedback from our users. So the process is going to be intense and seeking stakeholder input. And so we're very excited about that. This hasn't been done for about 15 years. And the Office of Innovation is working through the contract details. Will probably come to you probably the first meeting in June, around that time frame. So we're getting very close. Code enforcement works to try to keep our city free from hazards and nuisances, and they're very efficient. They complete numerous inspections. They issue a lot of notices, and of course, a lot of what they do comes here with the dilapidated structures and unsecured, but they also do high grass and weeds and junk and debris, pick up a lot of signs, whatever they can do to make our community safer. They have a code inspections program. They have the nuisance abatement program that really provides clerical support for the code inspections. If you'll notice on this photograph here on the right, this is one of our inspectors named Dale Plumley, and he's taking a photograph to prepare a notice of violation for tall grass and weeds. And there's a measuring stick that's stuck in the ground. So by ordinance, if it's over 12 inches tall, if the grass is over 12 inches tall, it's a violation. So this is a way that they can mark the grass in an objective manner and document it for the notice. And one of the things that we do, we really work with our residents. We try to bring them in compliance as opposed to trying to be punitive. So again, code enforcement, construction inspections is one of our priorities from our strategic business plan, and one of our key measures is the % of first complaint-based inspections completed within 4 days. And currently, we're projected to be at 83% for the year. Our target is 85%, so we're pretty close. Over that 5-year average there, it's right at 85%. So again, we've had a few vacancies this year, so we think we're doing pretty good there. And our next key measure is a % of code violations resolved voluntarily. And this is really important to us, as it is our property owners and our residents. If we can bring a property into compliance without having to go through a violation or a citation or an abatement process, it's just better for everyone. And so, and this is part of what our education program is about, to educate our residents about the importance of our codes and what they are. And so we're on a little bit of an upswing here. Our target's actually 82%. So we're just a hair under that, but overall we're kind of trending upwards, and we think that's a really good sign. And we appreciate the assistance that we're getting from our residents. So some of the things that code enforcement's been working on to gain operational efficiencies is they're using technology. We've issued our inspectors smartphones that they can use to help route calls. And, you know, a few years ago, they had flip phones. And now it's hard to operate with a flip phone because everybody texts, you know? So they've got texting capabilities. And then they can use those phones to take photos, which interface with their computers much more easily than the old standalone cameras. So that's one of the changes. And then this change we're really pleased about. We worked with the city manager's office and legal to modify our notice of violation. It used to be very legalese sounding, and we really changed that language to it's a much more ordinary language that is less confusing to the people that get a notice. And so we're very happy about that. We always look at our staff. What can we do to be more efficient? And we've realigned our support staff in code enforcement, where we have a finishing desk now, where we have employees that will go over our whole process. Was everything done? Was it done correctly? That helps us to be more thorough in how we treat our customers. And then we've increased our ride-alongs with our supervisors, both to do quality control checks, and it's kind of a safety related thing. We had an incident this year that was a little bit scary. And so we've done training for employees on safety, and we want our employees to be safe, and we also want our residents to be safe. You know, if conflicts arises out in the field, that's not good for either party. So we're focused on that. And then we continue to participate in educational events, also Neighbors Night Out, neighborhood association meetings, some of your city council town hall meetings, and we twice annually now we're doing a community engagement event that's sponsored by code enforcement. I always like to throw you a little bit of befores and afters so you can see kind of the impact in the community of what code enforcement does. This first property is actually property maintenance. And it's a little hard to tell in this photo. There's a couple of windows on the before that are boarded up. There's some debris kind of in the center there by that tall pillar. And once it's brought into compliance, it's really an attractive residence. New paint, the porch was repoured, the pillars were redone, there's a railing there, as well as a new driveway, new fencing on the side and the back, and the house numbers prominently displayed. So that's a win. That's a win for that property, for that neighborhood, for that property owner. Our next slide is an example of an unsecured structure. And not only was the building unsecured, but you can just see that lot is just generally kind of run down. And so the after photo shows a pretty striking difference there. The lot's been cleaned up. There have been some architectural changes to the front of the residence, shutters, paint. Again, I guess new driveways are pretty nice. So a new driveway, new fencing again. So that's an improvement for that neighborhood. And then this third slide is an example of a commercial building. This was a dilapidated structure, had been damaged by fire, was unoccupied, and through our contractor, we went in and cleared off that lot, got rid of the junk and debris, got rid of the hazard from being dilapidated, but also from pests and other things. And now that lot is cleared, freed of those hazards, and also is available to be redeveloped. Animal welfare is our second largest line of business, and it continues to be a pretty popular visit spot for people in our community. They run about 14,000 visitors a month. Of course, they complete almost 18,000 service calls. They care for between 19 and about 21,000 animals a year, depending on the year. And of course, they're really focused on saving as many lives as they can save. And these photos on the right are taken from an event that's our Walk a Shelter Dog event. And this was started by our event coordinator, Natalie White. And it is exactly what it says. We invite volunteers to come out on a weekly basis and walk dogs. And it's been a very successful event. Our dogs do not get out of the shelter that much, so they get out, they get walked, they get exercise, they get fresh air, they get contact with people, and the people get those very same things back, but with the dog. So it's absolutely a win-win situation. And one of the things we really like to hear is that somebody walks a dog, and we have people that will walk a dog, and then they'll hang around at the shelter afterward and adopt that dog. So we think that's great. And I want to give a shout out here to Amy Madera and to Human Resources, because they're the first department that's reached out and said, we want to participate in Walk the Dog event. And we hope other members of our city family will do that as well. So live release rate, again, is one of our priorities from our strategic business plan, and this is one of our key measures, percent of dog and cat live releases. And I just want to give a shout out here to our Superintendent John Gary and his staff. They have worked tirelessly for years to do absolutely everything really possible to have better outcomes for the animals, for more live releases. And it's shown in this. I like to spread this chart out because it shows how things have really improved. It wasn't that long ago, I think it's 2007, we were at about a 25% live release rate. So our target again here is 90. We fixed it at 90. We don't really drop it because that's really where we want to be. And we've had a little bit of a downtrend recently, and a lot of that came from last year. One of the hardest years we've ever had in terms of the shelter. You might remember we had canine flu. We had to shut down a couple times. And our transfer partners had to shut down too. So we just weren't able to move a lot of animals. And although we're trending down a little bit right now, it's actually going up. The community has been responding. We're having more adoptions. And so we're projected at 77% at the end of the year, but currently we're saving about 72% of the dogs and about 95% of the cats. So we're happy that number's trending upward. Another key measure for us is our number of public spay and neuters performed. These we provide to our residents for free. And it makes a big difference, especially when our community's growing. As people come in, more animals come in. And people that will take advantage of this program helps reduce the overall load of animals at our shelter. We're down a little bit from our high of last year. Our target is actually 7,000, which is extremely optimistic, but we're still working. And so we're down a little bit from last year, but over the 5 years, we're up from some of those years as well. So operational efficiencies, animal welfare I think is pretty exciting. So we added a public information and marketing coordinator this year. Her name is Yazim Wim, and she's made a tremendous difference in our social media. We've got about 80,000 Facebook followers and about 6,000 Instagram followers. And that social media really didn't get the attention that it needed previously, and so there were times where we're trying to provide information to the community. Sometimes we got negative information back. And so Ms. Wim has really turned that into a much more positive presence. She sends out educational information and general information. And so we think this is really on the upswing for us in a positive direction, which we really appreciate. And then we also have a Pause to Adopt program, which historically, a supervisor goes through a shelter and it tries to identify which animals are adoptable. And they still do that, but in the Pause to Adopt program, if somebody comes in and says, I want to adopt that animal, we will put it to the front of the line in terms of spay and neuter or health checks or vaccines, whatever we need to do, so we can get that animal out of the shelter and in the hands of that adopter as soon as possible, because that makes them both happy. And we like making people happy, and it makes us happy too. So that's been a very good program for us. And then I want to just talk a minute about our public-private partnerships. We couldn't begin to do what we do without our public-private partnerships. Public partnerships, of course, start with support from the city council, from the city manager's office. We get a lot of support from other departments. And we get a lot of private support from our community. We have individuals who give thousands of hours a year to volunteer at the shelter. We have foster parents. We have over 100 transfer partners. And really our primary partners are the Oklahoma Humane Society, the Best Friends Animal Society, which is a national group, the Bella Foundation, the patrons of Oklahoma City Animal Welfare, and Shawnee Mills. And this came from Councilman Cooper, I believe. He said we should bring somebody in, suggested we bring somebody in to look at our operations and see what we could change. And that makes a lot of sense to us. I think animal welfare has been operating under the same model probably mostly forever. And that model, I think, is there's a problem with an animal in the community, and then it ends up at animal welfare, and now it's a problem for animal welfare. And we think it's time to look at how animal welfare operates, to look at a more holistic approach, one that has a way to also address how our community views animals. And so to that end, really spearheaded by Assistant City Manager Aubrey McDermott and with John Gary, of course, and once again, the Office of Innovation is stepping in to help and support us. We're in the process of identifying key partners to start re-envisioning what animal welfare can look like. How can we make it better? Make it better for everybody. And so we think this is a really important time to do that as progress will soon start on our new shelter. So we think those two things are a good combination. Also want to mention for animal welfare some of the free services we provide: spay, neuter, collars and leashes, dog houses, ID tags, pet food bank, and then the Bella Foundation and OK Humane help us with low-cost vaccine and microchips. And the reason I've picked up my rate of speech here is because you're not listening to anything I'm saying, because you're looking at these beautiful pictures. So these pictures again were the idea of Natalie White, our events coordinator. And we partnered with the Everything Goes Dance Studio, who donated their time, and a photographer to take these beautiful photos of dancers with our dogs and cats. And this is just a sampling of those. There are more out on our Facebook page, so you're welcome to go out and see those as well. And so that's just a lot of fun, and that's really what pets can do for our residents in our community. So with that, I'll be happy to address any questions you may have.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate your work and your leadership, and I really appreciate your acknowledgement of the staff and all the work that they're doing, and then your collaboration with Kelly and the Office of Innovation Office to try to look at different ways to manage some of the services that we provide.
And I don't have any questions, but I do just want to, I think a few years ago, I kind of said some appreciation for kind of y'all's like the animal welfare in particular's online presence, but I have noticed that engagement and the types of things that are being promoted has changed, and even most recently seeing like the Community Cats program be promoted through Instagram is something new that I hadn't seen before. So I just want to give credit to your public information person, because I do think that where people are, which is on these various social media platforms, helps get that information in front of folks and thinking about how they can participate and engage in kind of, if they're like, oh yeah, I do see a lot of cats, or it's sort of some of these little hidden gems that I think animal welfare does really well, help get the word out, and just I've noticed that it's just always improving. So I just wanted to say that and give appreciation to that staff member for just kind of taking it to the next level. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just a few items. one, thank you for, I'll be able to do it in probably less than a minute, I think. Thank you for the kind words regarding just what I was hoping you all would be able to take on, particularly within the context of the maps for animal shelter. I think now's the time, so I'm just grateful to hear that my message resonated with you all. Truly grateful. I can assure you my cat Marion is sitting at home right now on a bevy of pillows going, yeah, that's a good idea, because she watches council. I don't know if you all know that. That's what this vigorously. So yeah, so thank you for that. I'd like to put an address out there because you all were so successful for us in that Harlow cul-de-sac in Ward 2. I was at Burger Punk a few weeks ago in Paseo, and some residents tell me that the intersection of 29th and Walker, the southwest home there, has been vacant for a long time. There's just like a colony of cats. So should we have some time to, which I understand how short-staffed in so many ways we are. I just wanted to bring to your attention that we have this, issue there, and if there's any way to, think about bringing spay and neuter out to that intersection, it would probably be useful to kind of help tamp down that population. So yeah, the southwest corner of 29th and Walker specifically, they tell me that the cats are under the home, and then when I'm walking from Burger Punk back to my house, I often see them scattering around. So I believe my residents. Thirdly, and concludingly, I guess it was closer to 2 minutes, but John, and to the team who lived through the flu, the canine flu. So I won't know what that was like for you all because I wasn't there, but I do know what it's like to lose someone, and I know that your charge is to save lives and to keep the cats and dogs and every creature in there healthy. And I can't imagine the loss you must have felt when that didn't always work. And so I just wanted to take a time to pause and acknowledge you all's efforts and the likely grief, right, that comes with loss. And I think too often in our society, we move so quickly past grief to avoid it because it's painful. But I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge those losses, number one, and the effect that probably had not just on you, but your entire team who dealt with that. And I just want to say thank you for their efforts, but also acknowledge that grief and that grieving process. And just thank you.
Yeah, and that was a very difficult time. To work at animal welfare, you really have to care a lot about animals. And I kind of glossed over this, so I asked Tony to go back to the slide of operational efficiencies. The upper right-hand corner is our veterinary staff, and then the middle slide is our field staff, and then the bottom right is our shelter staff. And it's not everyone, but it's there who's available for those photos. And these are the people that are really, really dedicated. And you're right, it can be difficult in a lot of ways, but the commitment is really off the charts. So we appreciate them.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it. Appreciate your leadership.
Well, that concludes presentations and discussion for the 25 proposed budget. We'll move to item 5, citizens to be heard. Up first, Jacqueline Shelton.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Shelton, 2617 Southwest 63rd Place, Ward 5. I want so badly to just be able to riff up here and not have to read off of my phone. But anxiety. You guys have sat here, and thank you so much for being here. Obviously, the community has reached out to you and told you that there is not enough in the budgets. I have sat here and watched you guys. $68 million needed for Embark, $66 million needed for Parks and Recreation, when our state taxes, $64 million have been given to a foreign country. Those numbers are crazy. We could solve a whole issue if our state didn't give our state tax dollars to Israel. You guys have a duty to call for a ceasefire and to divest those monies from a foreign government. Our society, our communities here in Oklahoma need our tax dollars. We deserve our tax dollars. Everyone works really hard and knows that those tax dollars go to our infrastructure, and the community would like it if you guys would pass a ceasefire resolution and divest the $64 million. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Ms. Shelton. Up next, Marilee Perriam. Ms. Perriam? Okay. And then last, I have Michael Washington, who appears to have left as well. So with that, item 6 is adjournment. So we are adjourned. Thank you.